And we are live. Welcome everyone to the 56th episode of Coaster Time, hosted by me, Carrick from Coaster Hour. And as always, we will be doing many different segments. And if you want to know what exactly is happening in the stream, you can check out the itinerary in a description down below. But today we also have a special guest who has recently reached 1,000 subscribers and is also the host of the Coaster Life podcast. And that is Sean from East Coaster Fan. So Sean, if you could introduce yourself, tell us where to find you, that would be absolutely fantastic.
Absolutely. What's up, guys? Hope you're all having a great evening if you're here on the East Coast, afternoon, I guess, on the West Coast. Uh, my name is Sean. I run East Coaster Fan on both YouTube and Instagram. So, on the YouTube side, I do things like vlogs, discussion videos, brief history, and then also a video podcast called The Coaster Life that I just started earlier this year. That show is mainly about different coaster enthusiasts and going kind of into their lives in more detail. And then on Instagram, I'm also on there. There I post fun photos, videos, or reels uh, whenever I'm at a park or whatever I find funny. Really, it's kind of all over the place. My channel isn't really one specific thing. I kind of like doing a multitude of things, and whatever I find interesting, I'll try to find a way to incorporate it on either YouTube or Instagram.
Nice, and yeah, you seem to have a pretty good variety of the channel. I actually, sort of in preparation, I did get to watch your full um, documentary on the Golden Kingdom, and I thought that was
Oh,
really
thank you.
good. So I thought you did an excellent job there. Also saw the Mr. Six one just because I know you made it years ago, but the timeliness of it definitely is there. So yeah, no, you got a lot of a good variety, and I've watched your podcast too. So great work there.
Thank you very much.
With that being said, we'll move on to our first Q&A and buy or sell. So if you have any questions for either of us, whether that's just normal questions or like buy or sell questions, you can go ahead and ask them now. We'll have two segments, one here at the beginning and then one here at the end. So if you have a question that we don't get to or want to ask a question later, we will have that opportunity as well. So wanted to mention that. But just looking through the chat. Jackson's here in the chat. Hello. Nice to see you in here. Frontier Coasters, Michael. And then Frontier Coasters, he helps me out actually quite a bit with my quizzes. So like a buy or sell example would be like, would something like the meme coaster of these streams, Bisbee Spiral Airship, will it return? That'd be an example of that. But Frontier Coasters helps me a lot with the quizzes, so huge shout out there. But yeah, like I said, any questions or any buy or sells, now would be the time to ask.
My echo went off in my room.
Yep.
Feel free to ask anything. I'm an open book. You can ask whatever.
Yep. But let's see. So I guess on another note, just I guess we could also talk about other things that you have going on in the meantime as people are gathering their questions. So what do you have going
Sure.
on in the future, just Sean?
Yeah, so in case you don't know, if it's not in the name itself, East Coaster Fan, I actually live on Long Island, so I'm a Long Island roller coaster enthusiast. So throughout my entire life, my home park has been Adventure on Long Island, and even though I've been going to school in different places, kind of coming back home, that's where I am right now on Long Island. So I recently announced a kind of makeshift meetup event called Long Island Enthusiast Day that's going to take place at Adventure on Long Island. It's been an idea I've had for a while now. It's not a park sponsored event. It's kind of just me organizing it all. But if you're local to Long Island or kind of the eastern region around New York City, definitely come out. It should be a lot of fun. And if you've never been to Adventure on Long Island before, this is honestly, I think, the best opportunity to do so. I'll be there. I'll be filming a video there. I'll be filming a podcast episode inside the park, which I've never done before. Uh, and yeah, it should hopefully be a lot of fun, and there'll be a few surprises that I'm going to throw in there as well. So that's been the main thing I've been working on, other than just editing.
Nice. So,
I,
I mean, that sounds like it'll be a fun event. If you're in the area, would definitely recommend checking it out if you have the opportunity. So,
or if you're on the West Coast or anywhere else in America, fly on down if you're really, really interested. Or if you're local to Long Island, you can just drive.
yeah, but we got a few buy or sells in here.
Sure.
Buy or sell Universal in the UK will cause a resurgence of sorts within the English coaster world, I guess, after it opens. So it opening definitely, I forget what exactly the area is, but I think it's like pretty close to London. But I mean, that's a huge new theme park, and I feel like the other parks will be kind of pressured to step it up with their additions, so I will buy it. I think we will see other parks kind of step up their game in terms of additions, just because, I mean, Universal is uh, going to bring a theme park that a lot of people are excited for, and they need to find unique ways to offer something that Universal doesn't. So I would definitely buy that.
Yeah, I'm also gonna buy that. They're gonna have a really premier amusement park now in Britain, UK area, and I think the parks within the region, like Alton Towers, I think is like the premier uh, park within that region when you think of the UK or that area specifically. And then you also have Thorpe Park. They just built a coaster, but the fact that they have a new Universal Park in the works, they're going to have to think of other new things to try and combat that. And I'm really excited. I hope it does fully get built, and I'll be really happy if it does.
I think there's a pretty good shot. Seems like they're getting all the stuff necessary that they need to get done, and it's actually being well planned out. And I know that'd be a really welcome addition to UK enthusiasts who have had to kind of suffer through like the London Resort and that whole saga, which didn't really end up working out multiple times, it feels like. So, yeah, that would be great to see happen in general. I see this other one. Let's see. Buy or sell. Once Steel Curtain closes, it'll be replaced by a mock hyper. To my understanding, Parque Reunidos slash Palace Entertainment hasn't really worked a whole lot recently with mock rides. Also, that just seems like a very specific replacement, and so I'm gonna sell it. I mean, we need to see what'll happen with Steel Curtain after it gets refurbished. I mean, that is definitely to be determined at best, really, at this point. But I'm gonna sell that. That's just very specific. So
I would
yeah,
say a mock hyper would be too similar to Phantom's Revenge too. So you have, I mean, Steel
you
Curtain's
could add
also sort of that
inversions
height.
to it, but I kind of see what you're saying.
Yeah. I'm gonna sell it. It would be funny if they actually, if they did close Steel Curtain again. It's under that renovation right now. If they went back to the RMC idea, that was like predating that, or they could just bring back the log jammer, which I feel like a lot of people in that region would like. But try and get Steel Curtain fixed. I don't have the credit yet.
Yeah, I think ideally, I mean, it looks like a really unique layout and everything. I would love to see it just get fixed and work out. But I mean, we do know that it has been extremely temperamental, so and has had a lot of issues. So once again, that'll be we'll have to see how that goes. Let's see. Buy or sell, Energylandia will have reduced additions, more sparse, but still receive a nice investment once in a while. I don't know the full situation of what's going on. I know they had several projects that got, or really their family area got delayed. Then they had to cancel their tilt coaster. There doesn't really seem to be too much going on in terms of new additions. So I think, yeah, their additions will be more sparse, but I'm sure they'll still plan things out and get nice additions. when they decided to invest. But I mean, the amount of investment it was getting for its first decade of life was just crazy and unsustainable. So in that sense, yeah, I will buy it. So
I would buy it as well. I think they need to focus more on the many things that are located in the park, kind of like fix, maintain, and kind of just fine tune what they have. They'll definitely get more investment. It seems like that park is adding something major, and just we're hearing news about new attractions and things like that. But I could definitely see a reduction in those additions just to make the park itself a bit better.
yeah, or I mean, it's kind of crazy because I know there's certain areas of the park that are newer that a lot of people like praise quite a bit, and there's some areas that kind of came at opening that is kind of like maybe wasn't quite thought out as well, or doesn't quite mesh with the new stuff. So it's kind of weird to talk about a park that's only existed for like 10 to 11 years and be like, oh, you know what? They should really renovate and overhaul this entire area, but feels like something like that would probably serve them better, but we'll
It
see
was
what
weird
happens.
because I think I only first heard of Energylandia once they were contemplating about adding Hyperion. Before
Mm-hmm.
that, I never really heard of that park before, and then it was suddenly put on the map. I feel like most of the additions after Hyperion did have those like time and thought put into, let's say, theming and
Mm-hmm.
placement within the park. But everything before Hyperion was kind of that like randomness, I'll call it. So
Yeah,
if they can fine tune that, maybe, but still, add additions here and there, I think that would be a great benefit for that park.
for sure. But yeah, definitely one of the more unique parks in recent memory, just with all
Absolutely.
that's been going on. So, I mean, I've only been to one European country, so I'm going to treat this question as bucket list European country for roller coasters rather than favorite. Definitely have to go with Germany here. There's honestly like no question for me. Just the variety in coasters, how well themed they are. I mean, some of your top tier coasters, like you got um, Expedition G-Force, Fly, Terran, Carnin, even some more unique ones, although there's more of these popping up around the world. But Halzuberkopf looks really cool. They have a lot of really good looking Gerstlauer Eurofighters slash Infinity coasters. So I'd have to go with Germany for sure on this one.
I would say actually Britain. So like,
Okay.
or I mean, you could group the entire UK together, but I'd say more specifically Britain. That was really like the first European country that I got to know their coasters as a kid, and it's still really been fascinating to me. So like Alton Towers, Thorpe Park, Chessington, uh, Pleasure Beach, and all those parks there. It looks like they have both like really interesting rides as well as just a rich history in many of those parks. Like look at Blackpool, they have so many old attractions there as well as some interesting ones. I am not a water ride guy at all, although I would love to try out Valhalla to see what
Oh,
that
no
is
doubt.
like.
No doubt. Yeah, that's that ride. I haven't even really seen much of it, but its reputation is so high that I have to check it out. So definitely agree there. But yeah, UK they have a lot of interesting rides. I just for me personally, although I know that you said it was kind of the one that you became familiar with first, so that makes a lot of sense. Um, I think that Germany just has a little more consistency in their like high end coasters. I didn't even mention Wodan or Voltron.
Mm.
Actually, not mentioning Voltron is a crime, really. That coaster looks absolutely phenomenal. Um, but yeah, just lot to look forward to, and really a lot of different countries have some really nice lineups. So a lot to look forward to. Let's see. Buy or sell Six Flag Real to Madrid World. They have a mock hyper that's like in storage. It's been there for a while. will be relocated to Parque Warner Madrid, which let me just look at their lineup. And they are far enough away from Port Aventura, and also a Mach Hyper would be different enough that that wouldn't be a theoretical issue. But they did just give them Batman Gotham City Escape, so I don't really know what's going to happen with that coaster in storage, but I'm going to sell this. Just, it's pretty specific, and they did already get like a massive coaster edition not too long ago, so I'm going to say sell.
If they got that coaster, it would not be for a while, just because they did build that Batman coaster. But that is an interesting idea if it would be relocated. I am gonna sell it, unfortunately, but I mean, I'm taking a quick glance at their coaster lineup on RCDB as well. I mean, Batham Gotham City Escape, Stunfall. I've heard is a really fun coaster. I've always wanted to try one of those models. They look great.
Superman looks like a really good floorless. They got a Batman clone. They have a not so great wooden coaster, and a few family coasters. So
I forgot about Coaster Express.
It got retracked recently, so apparently it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's still not like, you don't really hear anyone raving about it, so yeah, but we have another buy or sell. With the merger in around 10 to 15 years, we will see a few major acquisitions and new parks by the new Six Flags chain. 10 to 15 years is a pretty significant amount of time. I mean, I wouldn't think that right now. Obviously right now I don't really think they would be considering that, just because, I mean, they already have like 42 total parks, like combining water parks and theme parks. We'll see if offloading some is like an option in the future, or what the plan is there. I'm on that note, I'm curious to see what happens with Frontier City and Darien Lake, because Six Flags is like on an operator's contract with those ones, so I'd be curious what happens with those. But 10 to 15 years is a long time. I think if they see a park that they think is a really good opportunity to buy it, they will. Although you mentioned a few, but I mean, if 2 counts as a few, I'll buy it, simply because that's such a huge amount of time, and I feel like they would jump at a certain opportunity to get some parks, so I'll buy it.
I'm trying to think of like any major parks that aren't part of the chain that could theoretically join that lineup of 42. You have some that I just can't even see. Like Hershey Park is, in my mind, is
won't
gonna
get touched.
Say independent forever.
What does major parks? What does major parks mean? Because like that's also the other question. Because if we're talking like like your Hershey parks, like your Lagoon, like would Silverwood count potentially, is one thing I'm thinking of. Would, like, I know they're not that big of parks, but like would a Premier Parks like a Wild Waves count? Because like I'm like thinking of things along those lines. Maybe that's not considered major, but if you're just asking like a few decently sized parks, I think I could see it. But
Silverwood is not a bad idea, although I still think that's going to remain its own independent place within 10 to 15 years.
They rejected Hershen a few years ago, so they seem to be pretty content.
But you never know. I mean, Kentucky Kingdom, I thought that was going to remain independent for a while, and then that got bought by Hershen. So you never know, but 10 to 15 years, a lot can happen within that time. I think it's more likely, though, that it's actually going to shrink. So we're going to see less parks under the Six Flags banner. So I am going to sell it, but it could happen. You never know. There are plenty of parks in the U.S. that could benefit from being under Six Flags.
So Frontier Coasters has clarified that he meant like, do we see internationally? I would sell this because, I mean, I guess depending, although I don't really see much existing candidates in like Canada and Mexico, which are outside the U.S., the only countries I would see them doing anything in, and even then, I don't really see much options. Um, I don't like. I mean, I don't think they're gonna touch Marineland, for example. That'd be like the one park that everyone's looking at. But and even then, I think they're like sort of. I don't know what's going on there entirely, but I'm gonna sell it. Um,
How
I
close would Marineland be to Laurent?
That is a good question. I would. Oh, but you know what? It's near Niagara Falls, so I think it's pretty close to Darien Lake actually. So
Yeah.
um, didn't think about that. So even more reason why that would be kind of a weird fit. But like just from a stand, I mean, because anything else, I could not see it. Um, just across those two countries, and I doubt they would expand into like Europe or Asia. And then Kitty is kind of its own like sort of project that's not even really like Six Flags' money, so it's kind of its own thing. So I'm like, I don't really think they really are gonna look into that much. So
I think instead of like being part of the merger, we may see a potential use of the Six Flags name as like Six Flags Qiddiya, for example.
mm-hmm.
Which I'm thinking about that. How is that going to work under the merger?
I mean, I assume if you get like that, the supposed if they ever did the all parks passed, I'd assume it'd be part of it because I mean, how many people realistically are actually gonna have that pass and actually go over there? Probably very few. So it's not like they'd be losing out on a whole lot by having it on the pass. So I think it would be in there. But I mean, I think it doesn't really get affected otherwise. So, but um, that's just kind of an interesting sort of like side project going on there. But yeah, already, I think that's all the questions um, that I have seen on here. So I think with that being said, we will move on into the news. So we have 5 different topics for today, and we are going to start. And these news topics should clarify. These are things that have happened since the last Coaster Time episode, which is why you'll see some that are from a few weeks ago. Because I think the last Coaster Time stream I did was like mid-June. So with that being said, we're going to start off with Mr. Six. He has returned. So, just for a little bit of context, returned on June 25th after months of teasing to promote this year's Fright Fest events at the various Six Flags parks, which they also announced will be using an abundance of well-known IPs for mazes. First appearance by Mr. Six officially since 2010, so 14 years. That is just crazy to think about. And then in the advertisement, he dances, but then he is hit and run over by his iconic bus. But at the end, you can see him on the ground reaching out, um, hinting that he's still alive or like maybe undead or something. Who knows? But speculation is that he may be a part of Fright Fest in some way. That's what some speculation is, and it's to be determined if he's only returning as like this sort of Fright Fest publicity stunt, or if we're gonna see him return in other Six Flags advertising. There's been a lot of speculation there whether or not that'll happen, but that's to be determined. Sean, what was your thought on seeing Mr. Six return after all these years?
Oh boy. Uh, so Mr. Six himself, you could argue was the reason that I even initially became a coaster enthusiast. It was the reason I wanted to go to Six Flags Great Adventure at the time to potentially see Mr. Six. And I remember like potentially seeing him in the park. I was honestly young. I do have a picture of like one of the signs that had him on it. But the fact that he's been gone for so long and then just out of the blue, honestly, randomly comes back in a Fright Fest ad. I mean, they've been teasing the We Like to Party song since I feel like the beginning of this season. But actually seeing Mr. Six also incorporated with that is honestly great. I think that Mr. Six is a really cool mascot character, basically, for them to have in this park. It's an original IP, so you can't have Mr. Six really at any of these other parks other than Six Flags. And then the We Like to Party song, I mean, there are some people I know, personal friends, that honestly don't even call it We Like to Party. They just call it the Six Flags song. So having both of those coming back is honestly fantastic. When I found this out, or when they dropped the video, I think I rewatched it about 20 times within an hour. I was so excited. You could actually tell in the video itself too. They filmed it at Great Adventure. They got the fountain there. You could see a few things in the background, such as the big wheel. So, being an East Coaster, that made it a little bit more special, I think. But having him back for Fright Fest, really interesting idea. I'm not sure if they're gonna make him kind of like the Master of Ceremonies, similar to what HHN has done in the past as an icon. Maybe he's gonna be incorporated in the Dead Man's Party show that they do at the park, or at least some of the Six Flags parks for Fright Fest. He could be a scare actor as like a zombie, or he could just be in the commercials. We don't know yet, but it is a really promising future for Mr. Six, and I'm really happy that he's back.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. I'm just very curious in terms of they showed him, and well, I mean that's pretty cool to just to see after all these years. But it's like what's gonna happen next? I think it's like the big thing on all our minds. I'll admit that for me personally, like I mean, as long as I've been in the coaster community, I've known who Mr. Six is, but I was like an enthusiast and like I became one in 2013, so it's not like I grew up with Mr. Six per se. But that being said, I mean, after hearing about him for years and years, watching the commercials like so long ago, just on YouTube, just see what they were about, and now seeing him return is really neat. So, love to see that. Next, we'll move on to our next thing, which is going to be, of course, Six Flags and Cedar Fair have merged. Technically, I guess I have not covered this, even though we did a Six Flags merger draft that happened before it officially happened. So here we are now. In terms of details, a lot of the stuff that we had details wise before the merger, like that was announced within the time that the merger was announced, like last year, and within the few months after, still apply here. We now have this new Six Flags corporate logo, which has the Cedar Fair font, which is still really strange to see, to be honest. I just have like, no, that's not like a fan like made like sort of just joke post sort of thing. No, this is where we're at now. But as far as other things go, 42 total parks in North America, combining theme parks and water parks. And we'll have to kind of figure out what eventually will happen, as there's still really a lot of things we don't know are going to happen. But it does sound like the expanded season passes and park passes are being hinted at some point post 2024, just based on their Q&A session, them saying that they knew that people valued expanded park access. So hopefully we're able to see that sooner rather than later. But Sean, what are your thoughts on this, or just ideas, whatever it may be, about this actually being a reality?
Sure. I remember I was walking to one of my college classes when the news broke. There was that rumor of the talks going down between Cedar Fair and Six Flags, and then the next day confirmed. And I was at the time, I was so surprised. I was really trying to fathom a company this big, and then fast forwarding now to really today, and we have this map here of 42 properties. I believe it's like 27 amusement parks, the rest being water parks. It's honestly insane. It's something that I really gotta get used to seeing. I've just associated Six Flags, Cedar Fair, two main regional amusement park companies competing to see who is the best one. And it's a lot of things to really like wrap my head around. One that you can't really say Cedar Fair anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Cedar Fair is no longer existing. It's just Six Flags. So getting used to just not using Cedar Fair when visiting places like Dorney Park, Cedar Point, Kings Dominion, California's Great American, Knott's Berry Farm. I mean, some of these places have been Cedar Fair parks longer than others, but it's kind of weird now associating like Cedar Point as a Six Flags park.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
I,
with the oh, sorry,
no,
were you
I was just gonna say I totally agree.
with the logo, that's it's very interesting what they chose. I think I do kind of like how they have the Cedar Fair font there with the one eye being like the flag. I kind of wish they actually combined more parts of the Six Flags logo in it. I know they've had like that exclamation mark logo
Mm-hmm.
for years now, and I wonder if they could have incorporated that. But who knows, this logo here just might be for corporate, and we may see some other things happen. We may see the Six Flags parks honestly keep their normal logos. We'll just have to wait and see. I am happy that the parks are, at least right now, are keeping their normal names, because that is something that I was initially very, very interested to see if that would happen. And at least right now, we're not going to be having any sort of Six Flags Ohio World of Adventure types of things. Cedar Point's going to stay Cedar Point. Knott's Berry Farm isn't going to be like Six Flags Los Angeles.
Which would be insanely confusing.
That would be insanely confusing. Knott's Berry Farm is honestly a brand on itself.
Oh yeah,
But
no doubt.
But I think they're taking more the approach right now of what United Parks does. So they have like the SeaWorld parks, they have Busch Gardens, Sesame Place now is like its own separate brand. So going along with that, but I think the best part is what you said before, the combined season pass. If they're able to pull that off, I think that would be a really interesting move. I'm curious to see how expensive it'll end up being,
Oh,
because
a
for all we
lot
know,
probably.
it could be like universal annual pass holder uh like levels of pricing. But I know when I initially posted about this, a few people were commenting about a potential pass where you could like choose how many parks you want to be included in your pass. So let's say you lived in the California region, you could choose, oh, I want Knott's Berry Farm, Magic Mountain, and then the two water parks associated with that, Knott Soak City and Hurricane Harbor. Maybe make that a pass where you like build it up. But or you could just have everything included, like it has been with these separate chains. So we'll have to see if anything like that is revealed within the next few months when these new passes go on sale. But overall, kind of wrap things up with this story anyway. It's going to be really interesting. I think it's definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest, story that we've seen in the amusement park industry for a really long time.
I think you hit the nail right on the head there. I mean, yeah, this is I would imagine. I mean, I can't think of anything else. This is the biggest theme park industry story we've seen in a very long time. On the note you said about the season or the passes, um, I would be very surprised if there wasn't either a build your own situation like what you mentioned, or even a preset like regional pass where it's like, I mean, if you're like in California, for example, there should be a California pass, maybe even segmented even more into SoCal and NorCal, just because there's like a lot of different parks once you factor in water parks. So I'd be surprised if we didn't see something like that whether you can choose them or they're already like regionally preset. Texas would be another one because Cedar Fair has some the Schlitterbahn water parks down there. But yeah, definitely will be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, just absolutely crazy. I mean, the closest thing you can really compare this to, I think, is I was not an enthusiast at this time, but when Paramount got bought out by Cedar Fair, the Paramount Parks, I think a lot of people who were around then as enthusiasts will probably compare this to that in terms of just having to get used to everything. So, um,
It's really funny you say that because I'm friendly with this one enthusiast and who's who's been an enthusiast possibly longer than I've been alive. So he was around the time he was like really interested in roller coasters by the time that Paramount deal went down. So I texted him. I'm like, "Is this about this? Does this feel the same or does it feel different?" And his response is it doesn't even compare. And I think honestly, that's how I'm feeling about this. I think just the scope of it, as well as just the parks that are included, have just been Cedar Fair or their own respective brands for a really long time now.
yeah, that's true. Um, so yeah, this will be interesting to see. We probably won't see super noticeable changes in like, the next few months, maybe even really over the next year. I'm sure they're gonna have to get a lot of logistics sorted out and everything. But once those changes start to come in, I'm curious to see what happens. So definitely extremely interesting there. We'll move on to our next bit of news, which is the announcement of Planet Coaster 2. So this is a sequel to the first game, which released in 2016, was announced on July 11th, and it will be releasing in fall 2024. The new game will now include water slides and water park features. That seemed to be one of the big things they were promoting in the new trailer, and we'll also be getting a gameplay first look on July 31st. It'll be available on Steam, Epic Games, Xbox Series X and S, and PlayStation 5. So that's pretty much the details there. I actually have never played Planet Coaster, and so I'm certainly far from an expert on talking about this subject, so I'll hand it off to you, Sean. What are your thoughts about Planet Coaster 2?
Yeah, so really, really happy to be seeing Planet Coaster 2. I played a lot of Planet Coaster when I was in like high school when the first one came out. And I think the things that they are adding, at least from what they've shown in the trailer, do seem to be like really great additions to the game. I mean, starting off water parks and water slides. That was one of the biggest missing things from the first game. And I even remember like going on the Steam workshop and people would make like water slide outlines, but it was obviously something you couldn't ride at the time. So the fact that that's included, and obviously it's a big selling point of the game, is really great to see. There were other things too within the trailer that I noticed, and there were some other YouTubers I even watched their videos. Um, I'll give much more credit to them than me for noticing the very small things, but um, it looks like they're fixing some of the other gameplay features, such as making paths and plazas. That was something that was actually a little bit tricky to do in the original Planet Coaster. And just adding more attractions, the B&M Surf Coasters being added. That's really interesting to see. Uh, and yeah, I'm really excited about it. I'm curious if I'm still not sure if I'm gonna get it right now, only because one, I haven't been playing video games as much as I have in high school. Um, and also the original Planet Coaster, I checked before we started this live stream. I logged I think over 500 hours into that game, and I'm sure that doesn't even scratch the surface of other enthusiasts. Uh, but I am really happy that they're making a sequel to this game. I think it's definitely due. And I'm really happy that other gamers are going to get the chance to do it. It's nice to see also that it's going to be coming to consoles on day one. If I remember correctly, I think the console editions, and I guess if anyone knows in the chat, you can
I
double
think it was
check if
like
I'm
3 to 4 years later, or I don't know if it was that long, but it was multiple years later. I do remember that.
it was a long time. So the fact that that's day one is really nice. Uh, and yeah, I think it's gonna be a really fun game. I'm really excited to see it come out. And as many other people were saying in the comments, we got this game before GTA 6.
Yep, just add it to the many list of things that we have gotten before GTA 6. Whenever something crazy gets announced, it's like we really got this before GTA 6 is
Oh my
always like
god.
one of the first comments. It's so
Every
funny.
single comment section of something, uh, you get it before GTA 6. I see one comment right here. I've only played Roller Coaster Tycoon 1 from Michael. I've actually never played the Roller Coaster Tycoon games, which is weird. I kind of just jumped on the train once Planet Coaster came out. I think only because I found it's a great like hybrid of RCT and No Limits. And it's kind of like an evolution of that. Although I am eager if they remake, let's say, a Roller Coaster Tycoon or something like that, I'd be down to check that out. I've heard RCT2 is great, uh, but you never know. Uh, but again, Planet Coaster 2, really excited to see that come out later this fall.
For sure. Happy to see I mean, I know plenty of people who've played the original game quite a bit, and we're a big fan of it, so I'm excited for them that they're going to be able to play this new game, and it'll be adding probably several features, even outside of the water slides, that have been much requested or much wanted, so that should be pretty exciting. So, like I said, gameplay trailer will drop on July 31st, my birthday.
Oh, nice.
Also, the day that King's Dominion is making their announcement, as we found out today. So, keep an eye out for that. Maybe even if the Cedar Fair, Legacy Cedar Fair Parks now, trend continues. I know they like to announce multiple of their parks projects on the same day, so we'll see if that happens here. But could be a very packed day for sure, just in terms of different announcements. We'll move on to our next thing, which is the red Vekoma track that has been recently spotted at Six Flags Mexico. If you want to find a picture of it, you can find them on YouTube, Discord, Twitter, like it's out there. So this track was spotted kind of in a storage area in late June. Initially, it had tarps over it, but the size of the track was huge, so people thought it was like B&M dive track. Then another angle came out that clearly showed it had a pipe spine and very much had the look of a Vekoma coaster. So, so much so that RCDB lists it as a Vekoma coaster right now. So, pretty much confirmed to be a Vekoma. The main rumor here is that this coaster is Energylandia's canceled Vekoma tilt coaster based on the track size and color. If it is, it'll be this layout shown on screen, which features a twisted drop, multiple inversions, airtime hills, and more. 2,965 feet in length and 147 feet tall. Like I said, if it ends up being this specific coaster. And Six Flags Mexico has confirmed via teasers and a consultation site that they are building a new coaster in 2025, like officially, which is set to replace their defunct Shoot the Chutes attraction. It'll be near Wonder Woman and Boomerang, kind of in the back of the park. It'll be the park's first coaster since Wonder Woman in 2018. And some people have kind of wondered why Six Flags Mexico would be getting such a big coaster when some other parks have been waiting a while to get one that haven't gotten them yet. Sneakily, Six Flags Mexico is actually one of the highest attended Six Flags parks. We're only counting Legacy here, but in 2019, it was actually the third highest attended park in the chain, only behind Great Adventure and Magic Mountain. So they definitely get the attendance to justify something like this. So, of course, Like I said, the tilt itself isn't absolutely confirmed, but we do know it's a Vekoma coaster and almost like very, very likely the canceled tilt coaster. So that is pretty exciting. Sean, what are your thoughts on this?
Sure. It was really interesting seeing all the posts online of people speculating the track that appeared at Six Flags Mexico. I think a lot of us were really quick to jump on B&M from a far distance, but I think once we got better pictures and saw what looks to be the Coma track and people connecting it to the Energylandia tilt coaster, I think that is a really interesting idea to add to Six Flags Mexico. So I also have RCDB pulled up again. So you mentioned Wonder Woman as the last coaster they got in 2018. So it's already been a few years since they've gotten a roller coaster built there. But that was just a clone. If you go all the way back, the last original, and you can even put quotes if this is even original, is Medusa Steel Coaster in 2014. So that original layout, but still built on the structure of the original Medusa. So you'd have to go all the way back to really see when they last built a ground up coaster. Now, if this was relocated from Energylandia, you could argue about whether it's ground up or not. You could potentially say relocated. I'll let you guys argue about that. But a tilt coaster for Six Flags Mexico is actually, I think, a really interesting idea. They don't have really anything else like it at Six Flags Mexico, and I don't think there's even anything in the region that's similar
No,
to
nothing at
this at
all.
all.
I think this will be the. Uh, I don't think there's anything that even has a 90-degree drop in the region. So,
And then
um,
if you want to compare it to any sort of like dive coaster, the closest one I believe is Emperor at San Diego.
it'd be either depending on the. I don't. It might be. It'd either be Doctor Diabolical or Emperor,
Oh
but
yeah.
and those are like so insanely far in another country that I mean that's not really gonna have any impact.
And you bring up a good point too about what like the population and the attendance numbers that visit Six Flags Mexico. And I think that is one of the bigger reasons that they are getting that coaster. A tilt coaster, at least from what it looks like, we would have to really see if it opens and it does well. They look to be high capacity rides. Again, we'll have to see how it performs. It could be a nightmare. We don't know yet.
Yeah,
But
the OG one at Gravity Max. Now, granted, first prototype model and everything, but that has really bad capacity. So that's the big fear here. But this is next gen Vekoma. They're building a few of these, so
yeah,
hopefully they've got it sorted out.
we'll have to see how it goes. Uh, but I think building a new coaster that really matches the population or is really for the people of Mexico City, where Six Flags Mexico is located, is really great. I think they're deserving of a new coaster. It's sort of a similar reason to why Cedar Point keeps getting coasters year after year, it feels like. So they keep getting these high attendance numbers. So, the more people you have come into your park, the bigger expectation there is of building a really big attraction that is going to draw more and more people. So I think part of that, there, I think that's a reason. But then also, it's kind of just funny that it's relocated from Energylandia, if it is the case. That is a typical Six Flags move, in my opinion. It's the exact same, or actually, I don't know if it's the exact same thing that they've done with like recently, but
I
I could
think it
definitely
is. I think we
with
Georgia Surfer. I mean, we saw parts got shipped out of Vietnam, so that lets us know that was for an Asian park. And then Flash Vertical Velocity for Great Adventure is also assumed to be for another park at one point. So,
okay. Yeah, so that is what Six Flags kind of has been doing with these new coasters. I'm also um curious to see how it would fit within the plot within Six Flags Mexico. So if this was meant originally for a completely different park, how it's gonna look, how the supports are gonna be within the park, because we've seen examples of some roller coasters relocated with let's just say some funky support structures and weird changes um, to the ride itself. So if they add it, hopefully it does look nice and fit within Six Flags Mexico. I've heard it's actually one of the nicer Six Flags parks, so hopefully
It
they
is,
do
I
that.
can vouch.
Hopefully they spruce it up, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's really exciting that they have track there, and I'm sure we'll learn more as we go on through the rest of the year.
Yeah, for sure. So, um, pretty exciting there. Once again, we'll kind of have to wait and see, but I'm almost certain this is the tilt coaster. In terms of, and I actually do hope the specific area it's going in doesn't look the best. It's like kind of the back of the park near DC and their boomerang, which was like one of the first ones ever built. So if they could make that area look nicer, that would be great. Um, but yeah, curious to see how this is going to end up going. The good thing about this tilt coaster is it's listed on Vecoma's site as a um, I don't want to say, but I think it basically is clonable. It's one of two layouts listed, so it should be relatively easy to adjust, hopefully, for the new plot of land. So we'll end up seeing what happens there. But we'll move on to our next one, which is Canada's Wonderland. This came out a few weeks ago. It's basically a leak. Document ended up getting floated around. Picture of it taken. But we now know that their 2025 roller coaster will be from Premier Rides. Specifically, mentioned a Premier Rides dual launch coaster. Not a whole lot of other information is like really known about it, to my knowledge. So still a lot of mystery in terms of what the layout's gonna look like and everything. But within Canada's Wonderland, it'll be located near Fly and Wonder Mountain's Guardian, so it's going to be kind of around the International Festival and Frontier Canada areas. And I put on here that considering King's Dominion just announced their announcement day, I would definitely keep an eye out for an announcement date coming in the near future for this ride. So be on the lookout for that, maybe to come in like the next few weeks, hopefully. So. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it really interesting if they decide to go with Premier Rides, especially at what was, I guess, the former Cedar Fair Park. But you know, Canada's Wonderland has been known to do some, I guess, unique things in the past, especially when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the different flat rides they have. But a Premier Rides launch coaster seems like a really interesting addition. I'm curious to see how similar it would be to Backlot Stunt Coaster, which I believe is, yeah,
Yeah, they have a
this
backlot
they
stunt
have a Backlot
coaster.
Stunt Coaster.
I would
Uh,
assume this would be a more thrilling ride, have a few inversions at least, so I don't think it'd be an issue, but they do have a premier launch coaster already.
and and then I guess this is kind of a throwback. If anyone gets this reference, I'm curious if they're gonna call this Ziz.
I would hope so.
So, in case you don't know, so there is a story of, I think it's like different mythical creatures. If
Mm-hmm.
anyone knows in more detail, they can share in the comments. But they already have Behemoth, they already have Leviathan, and then the next one would be Ziz, Z-I-Z. So that would be very funny if they actually do get Ziz in the future, or you know, if it's a future coaster. But uh, the ride itself, I am looking forward to it. I'm interested to see how it's incorporated in the park. Their last coaster was that kiddie coaster they got last year, Snoopy's Racing Railway, and then before that was Yukon Striker. So if I'm assuming that it's going to be a thrill coaster, which Premier Rides, it's most likely gonna go that route. Uh, yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I think it'll hopefully be a nice addition, and with a park that has, I'll be honest, some okay to meh roller coasters and a few standouts. Hopefully, this is going to be another one that stands out within the collection at Canada's Wonderland.
I mean, I've liked pretty much almost every Premier launch coaster I've done. The one exception is I was not a big fan of Flight of Fear at Kings Island. But generally, I think you can expect the rides to be quite good. So I definitely think that it'll be definitely in the upper half of their lineup at absolute worst. I mean, because they just have a lot of rides that are very meh to below that. Um, but I am very curious to see what the layout looks like because with Premier Rides, it's always interesting to see whenever they're able to do custom layouts, which hopefully they're going to be able to do here. Just because it's like they haven't had a ton of opportunities in more recent years. We've seen a few more like Icebreaker, West Coast Racers, even longer ago. You can point at Full Throttle. Their overseas projects, they've had a few things that are kind of similar to each other though. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what comes of this ride. So
I'm curious to see if this has comfort colors or not.
I hope not. I really hope.
They are not fun. I was just recently this past 2 weekends ago. I was at Lake Compounce, which I've been to before, and just riding Phobia, their Skyrocket 2, with no comfort colors just makes so much of a difference. Even riding like Full Throttle too, that ride doesn't have them either. Just makes the ride so much better.
The thing that's interesting, I've ridden two coasters with comfort colors, West Coast Racers and an electric eel at SeaWorld San Diego. I actually didn't mind them like at all on SeaWorld on electric eel. I guess it rode fine enough that I didn't have any issues with neck banging or anything, so I didn't actually see any issue there. West Coast Racers though, that's one that it's really unfortunate it has it because the best element in the ride, in my opinion, is that first high five element, but you're almost guaranteed gonna get your neck right into the comfort collar just because of how it transitions. So it would also, I think, be a little layout dependent in terms of how much that would affect the ride, but I would prefer if they just don't have comfort collars. I definitely agree on that front. So
Please
yeah.
no comfort collars.
That'll wrap it up for the news segment. And then we'll move on to our next segment, which will be Guess the Coaster. So we'll be alternating back and forth. I will be going first. So if you haven't played this before, you try to guess the coaster that I am thinking of, or in this case, I'll pull up a recognizable coaster on RCDB by guessing clues. And then eventually guessing the name of the coaster that I have. So I'm still getting the one that I am going to do here. Wow, it's taking a bit. I was not gonna do it, but I got Sandblaster in Florida, which is not
God.
a good one. not ideal. Okay, all right, I got one. Guess away. Comfort color is an oxymoron. Yeah.
This is off topic. I heard about this story with SeaWorld San Diego. Like there was this whole comfort collar incident. Like somebody was freaking out about the buckle going off and just annoying GP.
Something like that. Yeah, I think that was the situation that kept the ride closed for like a little bit. There was like some period of time where it was closed, maybe not, but I feel like I've heard about that at some point. But yeah, that's interesting. So this coaster is actually not in the US, but it is in Europe. It is not a Premier. It is not red, but it is blue. It is not white. It is not in Japan. So we have a blue coaster in Europe. Not particularly helpful because there's a lot of them. It is not in France, not in Germany, not in the UK. It is not in Belgium. It is not in SLC. It is not in Sweden. It is not in Scandinavia. It is not from Intamin. It is not in Spain. Let's see what else comes up. It is not a B&M. It is not in Italy. It is not in the Netherlands. It is not Goliath. I can see why this one would take a while. It's a known coaster. It's just, from clues, it's a little tricky to get, I'll admit. It is not in Portugal. It is not in Poland. And it is not in Norway. So we still have not identified a country yet. It is not in the UK. It's not in Turkey. I know we're going down the list. It's not in Finland. It is not Taiga. It's not in Greece. Oh my gosh, if it was something in Greece, I don't even think there is a coaster I'd do from there. Is it
I gotta like pull up a map now.
the Balkans? I need to make sure. I'm pretty darn sure this is not. There's no way this country's in the Balkans. Let's see what is considered. Yeah, no, it's not. It's not in the Balkans. Is it Western Europe? I think so. I think it would be considered. So,
Western Europe.
I think so. Don't know if it's going to be that helpful. It's not in Ireland. It is in Austria. Oh, Frontier Coasters got it. I just saw. Okay, well, I'm behind. It is Wild Train at Fantasiana. Rest in
Great job.
peace in a few months. But Frontier Coasters is on the board. And so, Sean, you can either think of a coaster or get one from RCB, whatever you want to do.
Sure.
But now they'll have to try to guess from you.
All right. I think I got one. All right. It is in the U.S. Let's see. It is not in the New England area. Let's see. East of the Mississippi. It is east of the Mississippi. Let's see if we could get a state guessed right. Okay. Oh, I saw the state. Pennsylvania is correct.
There you go.
So there you go. It is in Pennsylvania. I also saw over 100 feet is not over 100 feet.
Also, if I get it right in private chat, don't say it out loud. Let someone get it. I doubt I did, but...
All right. It is a wooden coaster. Someone asked that.
Okay.
It is not at Hershey Park. It is not at Kennywood. Let's see. It is not a Gravity Group. Let's see.
Dang, still done yet, huh?
No one's gotten it yet. Just a reminder for some people, it is not Kennywood. And it is also not Dorney Park. I saw a few people guessing Thunderhawk. It is not that. It is not defunct. It is currently operating.
Wait, really? Has no one guessed it yet? Really?
No one has gotten it yet. At least I don't think. Yeah, no one's gotten it.
Okay.
Also, they're another curveball. It's not Hershey Park. Some people were guessing Comet in here and Lightning Racer.
Oh,
It's
but
not.
well, one of them clarified they were guessing Comet from Waldemir.
Oh,
Oh my god.
ooh, great guess, but it is not Flying Turns or Twister.
Dang, I would have thought because I hadn't seen Flying Turns yet. I thought that was it. Okay.
Am I able to give a hint?
No, they must suffer.
Oh boy.
It's a wooden coaster in Pennsylvania. We
It's a
can't go
wooden
down that
coaster in
far.
Pennsylvania.
That still
Alright.
exists. Not there's a bunch, but there's not that many.
Oh boy. Remember what I said earlier, that it's under 100 feet. There we go.
Oh my god.
Frontier Coasters got it. Kingdom Coaster at Dutch Wonderland.
There you go. Wow.
Nice job.
I can't believe it. I just completely forgot about it.
The first ever CCI.
Yeah, no, it's a landmark coaster.
Great
That,
job.
hopefully one day. I would like to experience it, but
I haven't been on it since I was a kid. But I do remember it being not too bad.
that's good to hear.
Really great guesses though. I'm really impressed with everybody.
Alrighty, I do have my next coaster. Guess away in the chat. It is not in the US, so this is another international coaster. It is not red, but it is in Europe. The coaster is not white. It is not blue. Did I say it was in Europe? It is a European coaster, so not in Asia, not in Japan. It's not in Poland. It's not Bisbee's Spiral Airship. It's not in the UK. It is not in Germany. It's not in Mongolia. It's not in Belgium. It is not in Iceland. Does Iceland have any coasters?
That is a good question. I do not know.
I mean, we were going. I at least. Yeah, I mean, I don't think so, honestly. It is not in the UK, not in the Netherlands, not in Sweden, not in Spain. I believe it's considered Western Europe. It's not Norway. It's not France. For a hint, this country is not as difficult to guess as the previous one. It is not in Denmark, but it is in Italy. So, yep, it is in Italy. So we do have a roller coaster in Italy. Is it bordering the Mediterranean Sea? Like, as in, I mean, Italy is. The park itself. I need to look at it up on a map. No, it actually is not. Um, Pretty far from the ocean, actually. Let's see. It is not a Togo. It is not Oblivion the Black Hole. It is not Ice Speed. It is not at Mirabilandia, but it is at Gardaland. It is not Diabolic. Shout out to like one of the like very few existing Vekoma inverted or suspended boomerangs that isn't a giant inverted boomerang. Oh, someone got it. Keystone Coasters. It is indeed Raptor at Gardaland, the B&M Wing Coaster. That is the correct answer. So Keystone
beat me to
Coasters is on the board.
Well played.
Yeah, that was a good guess. And then, Sean, it'll be your turn. I forgot to mention we're doing 6 rounds in total, so 3 between each of us. So that is the plan.
All right. I have it selected, so you guys can start guessing now. So I think before I was skipping around, I apologize. I will answer each and every comment now. All right. So it is in the USA. And it is over 100 feet.
Yay.
It is not in New England either. This ride has no inversions, but it is southern. It is in Texas. We're getting here quicker. It is not defunct. It is in Dallas.
Oh.
You have a park.
Oh, there's like 2 options, I think.
And it is not Titan. New Texas Giant.
Yep.
There we go. Frontier Coasters got it again.
Nice. Have you ridden New Texas Giant? I don't think you've been to over Texas yet,
I have
have
never
you?
been to Texas in general. It's a place I want to get to one of these days, but never been yet. I did, however, just get to experience Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England, and that is a crazy ride for being so little.
I'm sure it's better than New Texas Giant. I'll just say that. I don't look, New Texas Giant, fun ride. Really good first coaster for any manufacturer to be their first coaster.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'll just I was not super impressed with it otherwise. But still fun ride. But yeah, I was only in Texas for like probably around 10 hours and I just went over to Texas. One of my flights got delayed, so I just moved my flight to a later one, and since I had a Six Flags pass, I'm like, I'll just go to over Texas for a few hours, so got to do the major credits there.
Nice.
But I do have my coaster, so for those of you who want to guess, go right ahead. I think there's going to be one aspect of this coaster that people are happy about compared to the previous 2. Don't think it'll take too long for that to be figured out. Yep, there it is right there. This is a US coaster. So we are back in the US as far as the coasters I've gotten go. So we have coaster in the US. So pretty much can exclude any other country. It is not on the West Coast. It is not in Kansas or in Kansas City. It is not wooden. It is not Steel Vengeance. It is not on the East Coast, but it is a steel coaster. It is... I don't believe it's east of the Mississippi. I can check, but I'm pretty sure it is... Yeah, no, it is not. It is not east of the Mississippi River. So it is west of the Mississippi River. Yep, it is in the South. It is in the South. It is not in Ohio. It is not in Oklahoma. It is not Batman the Ride, but we do have another Texas coaster, so it is in Texas. So we have a coaster in Texas, steel coaster in Texas. It is not defunct, and it is not Titan. It is not at Fiesta, Texas. So we have an existing steel coaster at a park in Texas, not at Fiesta, Texas. It is not Mr. Freeze. It is not Iron Rattler. It is not La Vibora. It is not Wonder Woman Golden Lasso Coaster. It is not Iron Shark. It's not Aquaman Power Wave. It is not Steel Eel, but it is at SeaWorld San Antonio. So that limits the options quite a bit. It is not Joker. It is not Shockwave. Not Mr. Freeze, if I didn't say that already. It is not Dr. Diabolical.
I missed something.
It is... Sean, your guess is not correct. It is not Texas Stingray. It is not Great White, but it is from Intamin, and Keystone Coasters got it. It is Wavebreaker, the rescue coaster, very closely followed by Mason. But Keystone had the slight edge there.
Good job.
So, another point for Keystone, and this will be the last round. Unless, I guess if Keystone gets another one, then we might do like a tiebreaker round, but besides that, this should be the last round. So,
all right. All right. I've got it. You can start guessing.
and actually I'll make this the rule. So if Keystone gets a third, Keystone will be the winner because they got it more recently. So that'll be how we're playing it.
All right. I think this is part of it. So it is not in the US. It is not in Europe. It is not in Japan. It is not in China. It is not in Spain. It is not in Australia. It is not an Asian coaster. It is in Canada.
Ooh, okay.
All right. It is not Flight Deck. It is a chain park. It is Laurent. I chose a coaster from Laurent. So let's see how many people remember Laurent's coasters. Okay. Oh, there it is. History and Leisure got it. It is Ednor.
There we go. What a ride to end it off with. One of the two SLCs that is not in the process of getting a new train in the entire legacy Six Flags park chain. It and Kong, I think, are the only two now, with Darien Lake planning to add theirs. Six Flags Mexico, for some reason, has one new gen train and one old gen train, which is interesting.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. It's pretty. I've heard from enthusiasts that they attempt to do their best to get the new gen one. It's just kind of funny that they have it, but
I wonder how you'd rank that coaster. Like, do you rank it based on the old train or the new train?
Uh, Different people have different criteria. I generally will rank coasters based on the best ride I get on them within reason. If the ride I get on it is like something that's like impossible to happen for like a really extreme like circumstance, like for example, Giant Dipper, I got to ride it at night with fireworks. They haven't done fireworks in decades and probably won't do it again for decades. So, I can't do that, but I think otherwise I rank it at most coasters. I think I rank at like their ceiling, but it just kind of
That's fair.
depends. Um, but with that being said, Frontier Coasters is the winner of our Guess the Coaster. Got 3 of them correct, followed by Keystone Coasters with 2 and History and Leisure with 1. So,
Congratulations to Frontier Coasters.
and thanks to all of you for playing. And we will move on to our next segment, which will be a countdown, a very fitting countdown for this stream. We have our top 10 East Coasters we've ridden. So these, just to mention what the criteria is for this countdown, what coasters are eligible. They have to reside in an East Coast state, and I referred to Wikipedia and adjacent places for the definition. So the East Coast states that are eligible, so any coaster from any of these states would be eligible, would include Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, South Carolina, Vermont, Virginia, and West Virginia. So any coasters from any of those states that we've ridden, they are eligible for this list. And we'll be doing this kind of back and forth. But wanted to mention on my part, and I'll let you also mention if you have any honorable mentions that didn't make the list. And actually, for me, I'll mention that Sean's list is going to be a lot stronger than mine because I've only been to, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 parks that are considered East Coast. That would be Hershey Park in 2017. I have to note that because their additions afterwards will not be on here. Over Georgia in 22, the Universal Orlando Resort, so those 2 parks in 23, along with SeaWorld Orlando and both Florida Fun Spots also in 2023. So you'll be seeing coasters from my list on there. Some honorable mentions of mine that didn't quite make it include Pipeline the Surf Coaster, Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure, Mind Blower, Batman at Six Flags Over Georgia, which is actually my favorite invert I've done just because it runs so crazy. And then Revenge of the Mummy at Universal Studios Florida. So those are some honorable mentions. Anything you want to mention before we get into the countdown?
Sure. So I'll start off, I guess, with some honorable mentions, but I do have to point out Frontier Coasters in here. Say, as for Delaware, are we including Blue Diamond Streak? Unfortunately I go to school in Delaware, yet I was about 12 years too late, unfortunately, to that one, and to this day they sadly don't have a roller coaster, so that's kind of sad. But but I have been thankful to have done most of the major coasters now on the East Coast. I think the only major one now that I'm missing is kind of like Six Flags Over Georgia. I have not been there yet. I'm trying to think of any others. I think that's like the only major one, which I'm thankful for. But I guess a few honorable mentions. I'm gonna say I was just at Six Flags New England, and I think Superman the Ride is an honorable mention, which some people would put that a lot higher than I would. Although I think it was just outside of top 10, and there are some coasters I found better. A few others I'll just say quickly. Steel Force at Dorney Park, especially this year, is running fantastic. They've done something with the controls to make it just, I feel, run faster, and then the mid-course brake run hits a lot less than it used to. Wicked Cyclone, another one from New England, is honorable mention. That's a really strong RMC, but I think there are some other ones that I feel are stronger. And then the last two, Storm Runner and Phantom's Revenge. And Phantom's Revenge actually at one point was my favorite roller coaster. So there have been a lot of great
Wow.
roller coasters that I've ridden since then. Uh, last time I rode Phantom's Revenge and have been to Kennywood was, I believe, either 2016 or 2017. So it has been a while. If I get back on Phantom, it might jump up big time on my list. But those are just some few honorable mentions of mine.
Alrighty. Just as a prediction to this, I'm curious how many overlaps we're gonna have. I don't think it's gonna be that many. My prediction is I think we're gonna have 3. So we'll see if that ends up coming true.
Okay,
But
we'll see.
yeah, I'll go first with my number 10 coaster. And if you guys also in chat want to mention some of your favorite
Absolutely.
coasters or just your thoughts on the ones that we talk about, go right ahead. But my number 10 is going to be Fahrenheit at Hershey Park. It's been many years since I've ridden it. I got 2 rides on it back in 2017. This was the first coaster I ever rode that had a vertical lift hill, so that was quite the experience doing that even before going through the whole ride. The first drop, still to this day, one of the better first drops I've done. Just a beyond vertical drop that isn't really trimmed, along with the longer trains, makes it absolutely incredible. There are some other really nice moments on it. The Norwegian loop is just a very interesting element in general. The whippy corkscrews were pretty whippy. And then that ejector hill, the one before the final turnaround going into the brake run, is really strong. So just a really well-paced and mostly well-sequenced coaster, I would say. I really wish we could see more rides like this from Intamin. It's a shame that they've built so few of these. But I think Fahrenheit is really good, so
That's a
it
really
has
solid
made
pick.
the list.
That was
Yep.
also my first like vertical coaster as well. So like I remember even as a kid like freaking out, oh my god, I'm going straight up. But the drop on that coaster is still fantastic. And the rest of the layout is really well paced. There's great airtime moments hidden throughout it as well. So very solid coaster at Hershey. Okay, so my number 10 is Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. So there are a lot of things with this coaster that I love. It's my favorite coaster now within Busch Gardens. For the longest time, it was Apollo's Chariot, but I think Pantheon is just at another level now that is so great. I love all the launches. There is one when you go backwards. If you've ridden Pantheon, you know the feeling, but there's just this insane pop as you're going backwards before you go towards the spike. And I think before Top Thrill 2 kind of stole all its thunder, the spike on Pantheon is really cool in the park, and it's a really fun element to experience. But you got great airtime, you got a fantastic drop as you head towards the Rhine River, and just a really fun, fast-paced roller coaster. So something I think you'll see as I go throughout this list is the coasters that I include are just fun. If I have a blast on it, if I can go on it over and over again, marathon it, and just have a smile on my face, it's one of my favorites. So with that, Pantheon meets that, and it's number 10 on my list.
Nice. It looks like a really good layout. The coaster that when it was announced, I was really hyped for it. I think I was a little over so just because of like some of the earlier testing where they were like sending it at like really crazy speeds, but it still looks awesome. That backwards, you mentioned the backwards hill, kind of going through the launch track. That looks incredible, and it does seem to have one of the better backwards spikes of any coaster out there. So that's pretty intriguing as well. But and yeah, Coaster Evan can confirm the backwards ejector airtime
It
on
is
Pantheon.
indeed nuts.
Yeah, so um, definitely looks absolutely incredible. My number 9 coaster is actually going to be Manta at SeaWorld Orlando. I only got one ride on this at night. Honestly, might even be a little higher if I rode it more than once, just because I was like actually relatively blown away by it on my one ride. Just because I have Tatsu at my home park. I still prefer Tatsu, but Manta was actually a lot closer than I would have ever thought, especially after riding Superman Ultimate Flight, which was fun, but definitely like way far away uh, from Tatsu and ultimately Manta. But I mean, it was absolutely excellent. The pretzel loop, as always, was incredible. But the inline twists were really fun. There's also this corkscrew that's pretty whippy on it. And there's actually a decent amount of forceful turns and even a few small airtime pops. So it really has like a really good variety of elements and is consistently exciting, which I like. And overall, I was just super impressed with it, especially at night too. That was like a absolutely blissful ride experience. So Manta would come in here at number 9.
Yeah, I've never ridden Manta at night. I've only done it during the day, but I think Manta is just has such a great presence in
Mm-hmm.
SeaWorld Orlando. It's a great front of the park coaster. The queue is something that a lot of people do not talk about on Manta, but is just really great. And it's a great flyer. It was actually my first one. I rode it before Superman Ultimate Flight at Great Adventure for some reason. I don't know why,
That's funny.
but yeah, it's very iconic coaster for that park and really solid ride. All right. So for my number 9, so I mentioned Pantheon before, but it is not my favorite in in Virginia, as there are two others in Virginia that I have on this list that I rank higher. But at the number 9 spot, I have Twisted Timbers. So, Twisted Timbers is the RMC hybrid that was of Hurler, and this is just a really fun hybrid coaster. You have the barrel roll drop, that's something really unique. I know Storm Chaser and Medusa has it, but at the time when I rode that, that was the first one I've ever done, and it's still relatively uncommon. So it has that. I think one of the best parts is just the 3 camelback hills back to back. It's very similar to El Toro, um, but and then there are just so many other crazy elements on this ride that just try to throw you out of your seat. I don't know what RMC was thinking when they were creating this layout. Honestly, it was just insane. And if you ride it on a really hot day, you're gonna go flying. So, Twisted Timbers number 9. I do think it's better than Pantheon, just mainly I think due to the airtime and insane pacing.
Yeah, as far as RMCs I still haven't done yet, it's definitely one of, especially specifically in the US, it's one of my like most anticipated ones. The layout looks absolutely incredible and the airtime strength looks absolutely absurd. So definitely can understand that being on this list, and it's another one of those really high bucket list rides for me. So love to see it there. My number 8 is a coaster that's pretty polarizing. But I came away being a pretty big fan of this ride, at least I would think so. And that's actually Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket at Universal Studios Florida. So, for one, I am just kind of a sucker for onboard audio on coasters. Space Mountain at Disneyland, not the one at Magic Kingdom because that doesn't have onboard audio, but that, for example, I have in my overall top 35, which a lot of people would think that's crazy just because it's a family coaster. But if you have a really good atmosphere and a really good onboard audio soundtrack, I really appreciate it. Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket. I wrote it after they did the music change up, which was a little disappointing.
Mm.
But I wrote it listening to Darude Sandstorm, which I really enjoyed. Um, and I mean, this ride has an insane amount of really good airtime and some really strong positive Gs. I get that a lot of people kind of clown on this coaster for having a lot of brake runs. But in a way, I actually think it kind of helps the ride because I don't know what those elements would have been profiled like if they weren't mid-course brake runs. So I think the entrances and exits of those brake runs are really strong and really good. So I actually don't mind it so much. Um, and it's just a quite a unique ride, honestly, compared to anything else. Also, night rides, I got a few of them in my time there. Those were really good. Even elevates the atmosphere even more with the onboard audio, in my opinion. I just absolutely love the ride. It was a lot more powerful in general than I expected. And yes, it does have a rattle. I was told by people I was with that it seemed to be running quite well, all things considered, when I was there, which I know isn't the case for everyone. But yeah, this was my favorite ride at Studios, so huge fan for sure.
I would say when I first rode Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, I at first was like iffy about it. I think the best way I would describe it is it kind of feels like an aero coaster in some of the ways that it transitions and how it feels as it goes through some of the elements. So I rode it that first time, but then the next day I was at the park. I was actually with David. He goes on Instagram by Stormrunner Sam, close friend of mine. And we did a bit of a Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket marathon. And in doing that, I actually grew a really great appreciation for this ride. Every single time I chose a song on the secret list. So I don't know if was Darude Sandstorm on the secret list or was that just
No,
normal?
it was on the normal selection.
Okay.
I didn't actually mess too much with the secret list when I was there. Like I kind of saw the songs, I'm like, yeah, I'll just go off the thing. But I know for a lot of people, I mean, a lot of people pick songs for the secret list. So
Yeah. So like there was a few on the secret list that I really like. I think Vertigo by U2. There's like a few by the Muppets, honestly, on there, which is very funny to do. But it's just I think it's a fun coaster more than anything. It's not trying to be anything else but just like you ride a coaster, you listen to music, but I still find that to be a very fun and enjoyable experience. And to your point with like all the brake runs, you do get some good pops going into some of those. Some legit, like, I'll call it flow ejector airtime as you're going into them.
hmm
So
yeah, no, I it definitely part of the ride I really enjoyed. Sorry, you continue.
no, that's okay. I'll say that I know it is polarizing, but I really like Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, and I know there are rumors of it potentially going away. If I'd love to get out there potentially one more time to like ride Rip Ride Rocket a few more times if it were to ever close. So we'll see what happens in the future. But I think that's a good pick for your number 8.
Yeah, as we said, it's a very good ride. So, what is your number 8?
Yeah. So funny enough, this is I guess sort of polarizing, but it's also within the same resort. I have Incredible Hulk at number 8.
Okay, that might throw my prediction off a bit.
So, Incredible Hulk is incredible. No pun intended. Uh, so, I think if you're looking for an intense roller coaster, this is it. This is, I think, one of the most intense coasters in the entire state of Florida. I have not done Kumba at Busch Gardens Tampa. I unfortunately missed that when I went, I think, like a year and a half ago now, or actually just a year ago. But Incredible Hulk, I think part of it has to do with the music. You're just get in such a energetic mood whenever you're on that, jamming out to the score as you're going through the course. And then really the first half is what makes that ride. Just launching out of that tunnel at an incline, going through zero G, Cobra Roll with a loop, it's just so well executed, and it's always hauling, which I absolutely love. And even though I think people aren't a fan of the second half of that after the brake run, I understand that, but it's also sort of like a breather after what you experienced, in my opinion. And then I don't know. I kind of just like the hang time that you get in that corkscrew after all you went through. So, and and I'll say too, out of all the coasters at Islands, it's the most. It's the easiest one to re-ride, I'd say. So,
Interesting. Okay.
or at least when it comes to like lines and stuff.
Okay, yeah, the line, yeah, no, definitely in terms of the lines, I would
so,
agree there.
so yeah, a bit of a polarizing opinion. I know people would rank like Twisted Timbers and Pantheon well above Incredible Hulk, but for me, I think it's just a bit better.
I mean, I'll get to it. It's on my list. Spoiler alert in a little bit, but
Ooh.
I absolutely love Incredible Hulk. It's yeah, my gosh, I'll get into it a little bit. You mentioned a lot of the points that I would say as well, but I'll get into it in a few spots. But I'll move on to my number 7, which was one of your honorable mentions. This is Storm Runner at Hershey Park. I only got to ride this once in 2017, was a front row ride at least, so would have liked to
Nice.
have done back row as well, just to get the drop off the top hat, but still made do with what I had there. Absolutely insane launch, one of the best I have done. I prefer Dragster just because of the length, which doesn't exist anymore, obviously, and I think I have a slight preference to Accelerator as well. That one just has a bit more noticeable power, but it's right up there with Accelerator. And then it also the thing that separates it from a ride that like Accelerator though, and why like I have Storm Runner higher than it, for example, is really the layout afterwards. Um, the top hat, as I mentioned, unlike the other ones, or like unlike say the taller ones like Dragster or Ka, you get some wild airtime going over it. So absolutely love that. The flying snake dive sequence, like from popping up into the hill and then going through the inline twist and going through the dive, that is just absolutely insane. That's a super memorable moment. And the ending is pretty snappy as well. So I just think that it packs a lot into a pretty short ride package, but it absolutely delivers from start to finish. And I like that it is one of those accelerators that does quite a bit more after the initial launch. So definitely something to appreciate for sure.
Yeah, great choice. Great launch on that. And I think the airtime is really what surprises me the most whenever I ride Storm Runner. The airtime you get on the top hat going down, and then going into the flying snake dive, which a lot of people, if you just watch the POV, I don't think a lot of people expect there to be as strong of airtime going into the flying snake dive. But it catches you off guard, and then you you're already feeling that airtime, and then going straight into that inline twist.
Yeah, no, that sequence is like just absurd. You just get hit with so much so quickly. It's crazy. So,
That's a
um,
great pick. All right.
alrighty, what is
So
your number
number
7?
7, sticking with Hershey Park, my number 7 is Skyrush. So I've been lucky enough now to experience both Skyrush with its old restraints and then its new restraints, flying first class now. And the new restraints do really help, I'd say, with the ride experience. I know early on some people were complaining about like it feeling a little less out of control, but with the old restraints, I think Skyrush was one of the few coasters I could never put my hands up on because I was holding that restraint up the entire time, trying not to like dig into my thighs. And I could handle the restraints better than some people would. Like I could marathon it and like just kind of ignore it. But with the new restraints and even the theming in the station, big upgrade. But going back to the coaster itself, wild first drop. You get this insane kink if you're in really any of the rows, but especially in the back row. I don't even understand how a kink like that is designed into a coaster drop, but it's there. Some insanely low to the ground elements with insane ejector airtime. Uh, and really, it's those like few airtime moments and the Stangle dive, I think, that really make this coaster. You could argue that it is short, and like some of the other things too. I think this coaster, at least for me, is a bit hard to marathon now. Maybe it's because I found it easier a few years ago and I'm getting older, whatever. But like some of those turns are taken so fast and so intense that I feel like it shakes a bit. And even though it's this crazy layout, um, I just find rewriting some of the coasters above this to be a little bit better for like marathoning. But Skyrush still is an elite roller coaster with some fantastic airtime, and that's all you could really ask for in that.
Yeah, no, I mean it'll also be on the on my list in a little bit. So, um, and you're even more experienced with writing it because I'll explain the whole situation with me writing it. But I mean, it's an excellent coaster. Some of these absolute strongest airtime you're ever gonna find like anywhere. Just absolutely insane and also extremely intense. So, definitely an excellent pick. And I alluded to it earlier, but we have reached Incredible Hulk at Islands of Adventure. Uh, I mean, I think you hit it pretty well. The onboard soundtrack, another ride that it adds quite a bit for me. And I agree. The first half is just utterly insane. Yes, after once you hit the mid course, you know, it just kind of does its thing. But I don't really care too much. Before that, it's legitimately, my gosh, there's a fly flying around. uh, it's legitimately like one of the greatest, I think, launched looping layouts like ever. It is just so forceful, so powerful. The snappiness, the aggressiveness, and everything is just absolutely absurd. One of the other things I liked about it, wow, this fly will not go away. This has never happened in stream. But anyways, um, the queue for the ride, I didn't have to wait in the queue for long, but I like there's like the centerpiece like electric thing. I don't know what that is called, but I think that's like a really just cool sort of like almost centerpiece of the queue as you're waiting to go into the station. And then the station, and then just I think that queue is like really nice. And the build up to when you're launching as well is incredible. So, well, again, incredible. Hard to not use it for this ride as a description, but yeah, absolutely amazing ride. So, yeah. What is
All
your
right.
number 6?
So my number 6, this really goes back and forth between Skyrush, in my opinion, but my number 6 is El Toro.
Ooh, okay.
So El Toro, one of my most ridden coasters. It actually is my most ridden coaster. So it's the only coaster I have currently with over 100 rides, which you may think, some enthusiasts may think that's small, but I don't go to parks as often as other people. So there's that. But El Toro, fantastic ride. Probably, let's see. Yeah, it's my favorite wooden coaster that's on this list. So you have the insane initial drop, which is great in really any of the rows, elite in the back row, and then just those two insane camelbacks, which offer some great airtime. If you're riding this on a hot day, like I did a few weeks back, this thing hauls like crazy. So, and you just hear like the wood honestly scraping the bottom wheels. It's going that fast. Uh, and then there are a few other elements in there. You get the Rolling Thunder Hill, but it's another one of those just fast paced experiences. And it's a ride that I love to marathon. So there's that. It's my favorite coaster at Great Adventure. Easily, I like it more than Ka, Nitro. Um, I'm sure I'll like it more than Flash when that opens. But there are so many fun experiences that I've had on Toro with people over the years. And I think just that puts it at this number 6 spot for me.
Another coaster that just looks absolutely insane. And one that I can't wait to ride for sure. I mean, we were just talking about Sky Rush, but El Toro would also be like one of those rides that has some of the strongest airtime on the planet, as well. So, I mean, that's a great pick there. Um, and so for my number five, I have Twisted Cyclone at Six Flags Over Georgia.
Mm.
I think in some ways I may be a little higher than some people on it. Not to say it's without its flaws. I think that, it is a very short ride. I think um, however they advertised the element, like the horseshoe, like coverall turnaround thing, which looked really interesting and just kind of funky when they released the animation, but in actuality, I think it's uh, probably one of the weakest not actually the weakest sequence of the ride, so not perfect, but the airtime strength on this ride is pretty incredible, pretty insane. Um, and the first drop actually is really underrated. It is one of the smaller RMC ones, but it twists as you're going down. So, in my opinion, that makes it a lot more unhinged than a lot of these other straight RMC drops. I actually also think Joker Discovery Kingdom doesn't get enough credit for that. And that one's even better. But as for Twisted Cyclone here, that's really good. The wave turn is, out of the wave turns I've done, I think it's the best one pretty easily. Just absolutely insane, sustained ejector airtime going sideways is absolutely absurd. And most of the rest of the hills afterwards are really strong. And then the inversion in the structure is the best inversion on the ride as well. So it's a short ride, pretty well paced, has some really strong airtime. Just overall is, and another ride that I got to do. Actually, most of these rides I've talked about, I didn't get to do that much. This one I did get to ride 5 times on my visit, so got pretty familiar with it. And it was a very fun one to ride over and over again. So, Twisted Cyclone makes its spot here at number 5. What is yours?
So my number 5 is also an RMC. It is my favorite coaster at Hershey Park, which, depending on who you are, could be a polarizing statement. But my number 5 is Wildcats Revenge, their brand new RMC coaster. And the second I rode this last year, I realized I think this is my favorite in the park and really ranks super high on this list compared to a bunch of other coasters I've done. This layout is crazy. So I think it has probably my favorite pre-lift section of any roller coaster in that it uses the terrain but also has those like crazy kind of like RMC pre-lift sections too. I think it's the most re-rideable coaster in the park. You have some of the other Hershey coasters from Intamin and even B&M with like Great Bear that they're fun but can give you a headache, I feel like, after a little bit. But Wildcats Revenge, extremely smooth as it traverses its layout. But even with that being said, it provides insane airtime. It has the world's largest underflip, which Hershey loves to keep advertising even now. Um, there are some surprise moments of laterals on this coaster that are thrown at you randomly, and it's another one of those where if it's hot out, this thing's gonna run extremely fast. I think too. This and Skyrush really go back and forth, but this is one of the best night rides in the park. Just because of you're kind of like in your own area, but you can also just see all the lights of Hershey Park around you, and it's a blast. It's such a fun RMC coaster.
Yeah, I mean, interesting. I have not heard the night ride thing yet, but that's definitely good to know. I imagine I was not able to get any night rides at Hershey Park when I went, because storms hit, like in the evening. Uh, wouldn't have been able to get on Wildcat's Revenge anyways because it was still Wildcat, but interesting to hear that, and it looks like a really, really good RMC as well. So another ride I'm excited to check out for sure. My number 4 is gonna be the first B&M Hyper we have on here, and I'm actually not that big of a B&M Hyper guy, for reference, if Diamondback had been eligible for this list, I would not have put it on here. But we have our first one here, which is actually going to be Mako at SeaWorld Orlando. So this ride, I was another ride that really surprised me. This is my most recently ridden B&M Hyper, so I've kind of had some different experiences with them. But this was definitely on the upper end in terms of the ones I've ridden. That like famous sort of 5-second hill is the real deal. It is absolutely absurd to get airtime for that long and that sustained. And I like that most of the hills, at least in my opinion, they're stronger than a lot of the standard floater you get on, say, like a Diamondback or some of the maybe older B&M Hypers. So I thought that the airtime strength was good in that department. Excellent sense of speed in the front row. Another ride that I got night rides on, and it was really impressive in that way. So, and I think overall has a pretty good variety of hills as well, because you have your more sustained hills, you have the speed hill in the middle of the ride, which is really good. You also have this hill that once it goes down, it twists. So there's a pretty good variety in terms of that. The ending, of course, doesn't end off the best, but at least it's a relatively scenic ending. So Mako overall was a big surprise when I wrote it. I did not have the highest expectations for it, and it definitely blew them away. So that is Mako at SeaWorld Orlando.
Mako is a really great coaster. I probably should have put that in my honorable mentions. It's that good, and if it's not my favorite B&M Hyper, it's really close. Like, it's always running super fast, giving great airtime. I do agree the later part of the layout isn't my favorite when it does kind of like those turns.
Yeah.
But it's all right at that point. It's basically kind of just rerouting back towards the brake run anyway, and you get a really fun coaster out of that. Extremely re-rideable, and it's really fun.
For sure. I mean, what is your number 4?
So my number 4 is actually my 200th roller coaster. So it holds a very special place in my roller coaster enthusiast life, and that is Iron Gwazi.
Oh, all right.
So some people would rank Iron Gwazi a lot higher than me, and I think it's because I only got one ride on it, unfortunately. So I can only judge it based on the ride that I got. That being said, I rode in the front row, and it was such an amazing coaster. The height and scale of it is incredible. I know since we're doing only East Coast coasters right now, I can't include Steel Vengeance, but this and Steel Vengeance are very close. And many of the things that Steve has, this also has the height, the speed, great airtime. I love the wave turn that goes right by the station. That was a lot of fun. And it's a really well-paced coaster for what it is. Again, I wish I got more rides on it when I was at Busch Gardens Tampa, but that was kind of more of like a day trying to get the credits, and there was also a storm kind of halfway through or during the middle part of the day that kind of dampened a few things. But I can definitely see the potential in Iron Gwazi, and next time I go to Busch Gardens Tampa, I'll definitely ride it a lot more, and who knows, it may even get even higher. But the fact that I placed number 4 on this list only after one ride, I think shows that it has potential and is a world-class coaster, in my eyes, anyway.
Yeah, the pacing and like the sheer power of this ride, just based on what I've heard, seeing the POVs and stuff, it looks absolutely wild. So, I mean, definitely I can see why it made it, even only based on one ride. But this coaster, I definitely think this, as far as the ones that you've mentioned that I have not ridden yet, I think this is one of the ones I'm probably going to be riding in the more near future, hopefully. So extremely excited to get out to Busch Gardens Tampa and experience Iron Gwazi whenever the chance rolls around. So I think this next coaster is only the second one I've had that you haven't done. and that is Goliath at Over Georgia. This is my favorite B&M Hyper. This is the one that, even more so than Mako, because I rode this after Diamondback. This one was like a really huge surprise. Absolutely incredible layout, great blend of sort of floater airtime at the beginning. That helix is absolutely incredible. Downward helix on Goliath. It is super intense. I was absolutely stunned, just like how intense it was, made me gray out. Not used to hearing much of that on B&M Hypers, just based on the nature of their rides, but that was a really intense element. And then the finale is just kind of wild. I mean, you have the three small hills that I think they're like, maybe calling them ejector is being a little exaggerative, but it feels like borderline ejector, which is crazy, like on a B&M Hyper. And even like you do a few weird like small transitions into the brake run, which is like really weird, like just how small they are and how kind of jarring they are. I think it's a coaster with a lot of personality to it in terms of the layout. I've only ridden 4 B&M Hypers, but I'm going to guess this is probably going to be my favorite of any of the ones that are out there. And it's one of the best hyper coasters I've ridden, period. So, absolutely incredible. And I cannot endorse it enough. So,
I think Goliath is
yeah.
one of my bucket lists now that I haven't done on the East Coast. So now that I hit the ones in New England, Superman the Ride, Wicked Cyclone checked off, you have the ones that Over Georgia, Goliath, Twisted Cyclone. But yeah, going back, Goliath looks great, really great. Looks to have great airtime, and that helix does look really fun to experience. The closest thing I've done to that is Nitro, and that's going in the complete opposite direction. So I can only imagine what it's like going down instead of going up.
Yeah. Nitro, it like on paper, the pacing's just not great. Like I think at least when I look at it, I'm like, there's aspects of the layout that look interesting, but it's just like, I don't know what it is. It just doesn't seem to run all that great. So, yeah. But what is your number 3?
All right, so my number 3 is Intimidator 305. I know it's called P305 right now, but for the sake of this discussion right now, I'm going to call it Intimidator 305. I'm just more used to saying that right now. And who knows what it becomes next year. But anyway, Intimidator 305 is, I think, the most intense coaster I've ridden and most people, I think, will ever get to experience. On a hot day, you are graying out so hard at the bottom of that first drop. It's a wild experience. I personally love like the whippy transitions that I-305 has. Just that sense of speed is incredible. There's also moments of like floater airtime as you're going over that like hill underneath the first drop. A lot of people don't really expect that, I feel, when they're riding I-305, but you get a little bit there. And it's really just a speed machine, honestly. That's the best way to describe it. So you, like, as you're going throughout those twists and turns, I've ridden it a couple times now, so I can properly like brace for them. If you're not prepared for it, it could whack you in the neck, even with the softer restraints that it now has. But I think just the pure intensity of this ride experience is just something I love on this coaster. Now, I know I mentioned like a lot of these coasters above are really fun to marathon. This one's a really hard one to marathon, but it is still a blast to ride. And it's just so much fun. I think it's my favorite. Well, I prefer it more than Millennium Force, but that's all I'm going to say for now.
Fair enough. I think I would prefer it over. I've only done Millie, but based on my ride on Millie, I'm pretty sure I'd take Intimidator 305. Just a hunch. But this is like a bona fide. Iron Glossy's kind of in the same boat, but like a top 5 bucket list coaster for me in the States. So, It looks absolutely world class, and I do really like rides that feel really out of control. I think this is one of those rides that definitely fulfills
Oh
that.
yeah.
So extremely intrigued for sure. My number two is going to be a ride that you mentioned earlier. This is a Sky Rush at Hershey Park. Another coaster that I have not ridden since 2017. Got a few rides in on it. Made the horrible mistake of not getting a ride toward the back row because at the time, I won't say who they are. I saw some enthusiasts and some channels that were saying that the back was too uncomfortable, only doing the front, and I followed that blindly because I was like in middle
Oh,
school. But even with that being said, and I'll get back out to Hershey Park. It's all good. I'll be able to get that back row ride. But even with that said, the airtime strength on this ride is purely absurd. The drop, as you mentioned, with that extra kink is just absolutely insane. One of the greatest drops out there. The first few hills really are also some of the strongest airtime moments you'll get, and though that's also combined with some turns that are also very positive G heavy. It is just an absolute rush in this case. I get another sort of uh, uh, pun thing there, but absolutely incredible in both those departments. Um, and even has some snappy sort of stingle dive turns as well, which adds to the experience. So it's really got a lot, very powerful. I understand why not everyone can handle it, especially at the time because it had the older strengths when I wrote it. Yes, they were not the most comfortable thing, but when a ride is as insane as it is, I can definitely look over that, and I did. And it's nice now that it does have better restraints to make it at least a little more rewritable. Um, but yeah, just absolutely just crazy ride. So definitely would love to get more rides on it and revisit Hershey Park just in general. And Skyrush is a huge reason why. So that's why it comes in at number two.
all right. So my number two is a lot of people's number one. It may even be your number one, but it's actually my number two right now, and that is Velocicoaster. I think you were typing it right as I was saying it. So yeah,
Yep.
so Velocicoaster at Islands of Adventure. This ride is the full package. Uh, Easily the best coaster at Universal and all Florida, in my opinion. Uh, and it's just the layout itself is great on its own. I would argue it would be a top 10 coaster with the layout alone. But then you add on top of that the great universal theming that is incorporated in the queue and also bits and pieces in the first half of the ride. But the second half, where you go over the top hat and the Mosasaurus roll, is so much fun. Uh, it is purely elite, I think, and world class. It is just leagues above, honestly, so many other coasters, and it's built at a Universal Park, which is kind of insane to think about. I remember when they were like building this coaster and people were hyping it up big time just from like pictures of the Mosasaurus roll being formed. And when I finally got to ride it for the first time, it not only lived up to those expectations, but I think it exceeded
Yeah, it is. I mean, as you alluded to,
it.
it is my number one. But if you have any other thoughts that you want to mention of it,
I think I mentioned it all. I'm sure you could go into a lot more detail about it as well.
so yes, this is my number one. Now, the funny thing is that I'm actually a little lower on Velocicoaster than some others because while it's the number one for this list, it is not my personal number one. It's actually my personal number four. So that being said, I mean, it's still like really high on my list. I do think it is one of the world's greatest coasters and one of the best coasters ever created. About the best blend of theming and elite coaster layout of any coaster I've ridden, potentially of any coaster really out there. And the queue itself, you mentioned it a little bit. I think it was really well done. I mean, those Velociraptor animatronics, especially that you see for a little bit, they if dinosaurs were real, they'd look like that. It's like actually insane how. I guess you can't really say realistic because it's like we don't know what dinosaurs would look like if they were around, but you know
They definitely look
they look real.
realistic to what's seen in Jurassic World, though.
Yeah. So, and then the station view actually, I think's like actually really awesome.
It's great.
I've been to like a lot of sort of zoos and aquariums, so it literally looks like sort of like a window into like a zoo or like like a zoo enclosure, but it's like a roller coaster's running through it, which makes sense because it's a coaster that's supposed to be themed to being in a Velociraptor paddock, but I don't know, that for some reason was really cool to see. Um, the first half is really where you're going to get a lot of the theming and scenery. I will admit, on the layout side of things, my first ride I got on it in the morning. I was a decent bit disappointed with the first half of the layout. I definitely think the ride has to warm up a decent bit for it to hit as well as it can. That being said, it's still very fun. You still have quite a bit of airtime. The interaction with the scenery is incredible, and the two inversions in the first half are going to be great in any condition. But that second half is where I think the fun really begins in terms of just that's one of the best layout sequences on any coaster of all time. From that second launch being quite insane, quite a rush, to the drop off the top hat, the zero G stall is, I mean, just an insane hang time moment. You get some great off axis or wave airtime moments as well. The Mosasaurus roll, one of the greatest inversions of all time, feels like it's trying to rip you out of the train. Just, it is bonkers. I see why people said it felt like you were getting like airtime on an inversion. I can definitely see that. And I actually think it's not talked about as much because it comes right after the Mosasaurus roll. But even the last few hills that are they are off axis, I actually think are actually pretty strong as well. So that whole section from the second launch to the end is truly a masterclass of a layout. And the first half is also really fun, and it's combined with world-class theming. So that gives you one of, like I said, the all-time greatest coasters. I can definitely understand why some people have it as their number one overall. And it is truly a phenomenal ride. But I'll leave it there. You got to give us your number one now.
Yeah, so my number one on my list is not only number one on the East Coast, but my number one overall. I'm wearing the shirt for it right now, actually, and that is Fury 325 at Carowinds. So there's so much honestly to say about this coaster, in my opinion. I was so hyped to ride this ever since it was announced in 2015, or well, 2014. It opened in
Yep.
2015, uh, and it took me 8 years to finally get out to Carowinds and ride it, and it blew me away. The ascent up there is crazy. I love just the views you get of the park, and then once you're at the top Charlotte, you get a great view of it, the city from up there. It has my all-time favorite drop on a roller coaster. It feels like it goes on forever. And if you get room in your restraint, you go flying on that drop. And then it turns into, honestly, a similar speed machine, at least in my opinion, to what Intimidator 305 can feel like sometimes. As you're going through all those different elements, I love the interaction with the park entrance. There's bits of airtime thrown throughout there within the treble clef, and oh my, I could go on and on about this, but it's a masterpiece of a roller coaster, and it is at least when I went to Carowinds, I was able to marathon this thing over and over again, really get an appreciation for the roller coaster, and this thing at night too is just amazing as well. It really warms up throughout the day, and you just keep going faster and faster. as it goes on, and eventually getting some insane night rides, some of the best in my opinion on really any sort of coaster, I think. But Fury 325, number one, I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's another one of these, like, I think really the last three you mentioned besides Velocicoaster are like super, super high bucket list. This is definitely one of them, and also a ride that if I go, I need to go on a day where I can get a night ride because those look insane. But yeah, Speed Machine definitely looks like it. I've ridden Orion at Kings Island. That's my one B&M Giga, which I actually really liked a lot. So I think I'd be a huge fan of Fury 325. It also helps that it gets a lot of support from the community. Just one of the absolute best ranked coasters. I mean, it's been the best ranked coaster in Golden Ticket Awards since I don't know if it was its first or second year, but a while. So yeah, it just looks absolutely insane. Would be curious to see where it would end up for me rankings wise, just because it's kind of a hard coaster for me to judge having not ridden it. I mean, a lot of them are, but this especially. But would be curious if this would crack my top 5 or top 3. So yeah, it looks incredible. So, but yeah, so that'll do it for our countdown, which will bring us to our last segment before our final Q&A. And this is a new one. I'm workshopping the name a little bit. We're gonna call it for now Roller Coaster Roulette. So basically what we're gonna do, me and Sean will alternate. I have built this board of North American parks. And for this, we're going to be spinning the wheel alternating. Each of us are going to get 5 parks to do this for, and each park it lands on, we'll have to decide what we would pick for them to get as their next coaster, if that makes sense. So that is pretty much the plan. And let me get the board up here. I think I got it. So here is our spinning wheel.
Oh, wow.
61 parks in North America. Would you like to go first for this, or do you want me to go? I guess I can go first to kind of explain, to kind of show what this is. But
you could go first if you'd like.
Just a fun little exercise, basically,
Sure.
Nothing competitive. So let's see what park I'm going to have to get. I can kind of look at RCDB and do a little bit of research.
Oh.
That's going to be hard. I almost got Cedar Point. I'm like, oh.
That would have been a really daunting task if you had to choose the next coaster for Cedar Point.
Okay, Disney California Adventure. Okay. So
That's doable.
I actually have kind of, there's a few ways actually, this is not that undoable now that I think about it. There's a few ways you could go about this, and actually I'll have this here. So we could either go off the idea that they're going to get the Disneyland Forward expansion, and so that gives them a lot of land to work with, and at that point it's like, okay, what has Disney made? Or we can look at their Wild Mouse coaster that's been there a while and be like, let's take it out and put in another family coaster there, something more modern maybe, and replacing Goofy's Sky School. And I think for this exercise, I'm going to go that route. In terms of what would make sense, though, that would be pretty compact. I guess that's the one tricky thing, is it's got to have good capacity, but it's also got to be pretty compact. So that's actually...
and it would have to be a family coaster.
Yes, it would have to be a family coaster, because otherwise they would have nothing. So actually... Wild Mouse layout is actually... I'm going to flip that. We're actually going to go with the Disneyland Forward. That's a little easier. I mean...
There's a lot of space to work with for that. You could add anything in that area.
We're just... the California theme has kind of died. So, in terms of them keeping that consistent. So, we're just going to say they're going to veer even further from that in this instance. So I'm actually gonna go with in this case, a Vekoma motorbike coaster, and we're gonna say it's basically a Tron clone. Um, just kind of honestly easiest for this exercise.
Maybe you know how they have that like bridge going up to Tron at Magic Kingdom. You can have that bridge going across the road to
Mm-hmm.
Disneyland Forward and kind of building it there
So yeah, we're gonna go with
to
that.
make a Tron land.
Exactly. So, yeah, that's gonna be that. Kind of a little bit weird because there is still gonna be Space Mountain at Disneyland, but I guess I mean, Magic Kingdom has a Space Mountain and Tron next to each other, so not the weirdest thing in the world. So, yeah, we're gonna go with that. Now, I guess I'm gonna spin the wheel for you.
Yeah, let's
Hopefully, you get
go.
a park that's not insanely crazy to try to do for
Oh,
SeaWorld San
Zero San,
Diego.
San
No, it's
Diego.
San Diego. Okay.
All right, you would know more than me about this, but I know there's a height limit there.
Yes.
So it would have to be something that is underneath that height limit, um, and then also a gap within their lineup. So I know they currently have a bunch of launch coasters and Journey to Atlantis. Uh, I gotta pull up their RCDP. I'm gonna do that real quick.
There I've had one for a while that I actually really like for this park, but I'm not gonna say what it is.
All right.
Um,
Um. So I mean, there is the plot by where Tidal Twister was, but that's too small. I think they'd have to use that land for a potential flat ride. I'm gonna see if I could pull up a map on my end by SeaWorld. What's tricky about their location is part of the park is surrounded by water.
I gotta mention something real quick. I have another segment. I was using the wheel for another segment. The Disney parks I have listed as a resort.
Okay.
So that was. I mean, we'll just still say that I said Tron for that. But I saw Sesame Place was on the blind ranking. I'm like, I don't remember putting Sesame Place for this. And it's like, oh, that's for something different. So, but SeaWorld San Diego is one of the parks on here. So,
All right. I guess what I can say is I don't know if they'd be allowed to do this, but let's say in this hypothetical you could. Um, I'd hate to say, and well, actually, I was gonna say wave breaker over the water, but they already sort of have that, don't they?
yeah.
So, uh, hmm. Okay, what if they added a Goliath at Laurent style hyper, so underneath the height, along the border of the park, right along the water, almost acting like a mini hyper, and then you could also have the picturesque views of the water. Yeah,
That'd be
that's pretty
pretty good.
much.
My thought, and I thought this like when they announced it, that I thought this should have been flipped. When SeaWorld Orlando and SeaWorld San Diego announced their coasters in 2023, I thought Pipeline would have been a better fit at SeaWorld San Diego,
Hmm.
and Arctic Rescue would have been a better fit at SeaWorld Orlando. So it is another launch coaster, but like because of that, I've kind of been like, I think a B&M Surf would actually be pretty good here, but I do like the idea of a B&M mini hyper
Well,
here as well.
does SeaWorld San Diego have much in terms of airtime?
No, they don't.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how much airtime you get on like some of their family coasters.
It's
Obviously, I've never been on them, but
Manta, you get some decent moments. Everything else, not really.
get that pop maybe on the Skyrocket too, but that's about
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
yeah, I'll go with a B&M Mini Hyper if they can make that work however they want to.
yeah, Coaster Evan mentions an Intamin Megalite. That would kind of fulfill the same purpose, but
And
that
they're
could
working
also
with
make sense.
Intamin. I mean,
Yeah.
also B&M, but they could pick and choose whatever manufacturer they'd like.
Alrighty, so I'm gonna run the wheel We got 8 more parks we got to do this for, so let's see what we get. Oh my.
Oh. Indiana Beach.
Can I use whatever available coasters that are available for sale or that we don't know?
It could be
Relocation options. I have a.
It can
I
be
don't.
relocated or ground up.
Okay. This is this is this is kind of a mean pick because this is not like a good ride. And I don't know if they have space for it, but at least the track would be high up enough to where it wouldn't be causing an issue. But I'm gonna go with they're gonna relocate T3 from Kentucky Kingdom.
Wow.
Because like it feels like something they do. They pick up a lot of used rides, so we're
Gene
gonna go with
Staples
that.
purchasing T3. Wow.
Yeah.
Now would it still be the Kumbak trains?
No, we're just because I assume wherever it's gonna actually operate, since it got sold to an undisclosed, they'll probably replace the trains. But Coaster Evan, I didn't even see that in the chat. Yeah, no, we were both on the same line of thinking. He mentioned T3. I think it's too perfect for this exercise not to do. So T3. Hopefully, if like some new Gen Vekoma trains, here we are.
No, I mean, they don't have an invert.
And hey, like nearest one would be like probably Six Flags Great America, and that's pretty far away. So, that could work.
Give them T3.
All right, we'll do our next one. This will be for you. See if it's like another cursed park.
Oh, come on.
Oh no.
Hollywood. Oh.
That's tough because they're getting.
I'm getting a lot of parks with little land.
There might be some terrain, or actually, I think there's an obvious pick here, but I won't say it either. I think there's actually a really obvious pick here.
All right. So, right now they're constructing Fast and Furious. They have Revenge of the Mummy. They have Fly the Hippogriff. Okay. I know. You'd make the Super Silly Funland like actual roller coaster and put it in the Despicable Me land.
I mean, hey, that's an idea.
Because they have like that whole dedicated plaza for Super Silly Funland over there. I don't know how the heck you'd make that work. Let's make it, I guess, try to make it as realistic as possible. So, let's say, I guess, God, who would be the closest manufacturer to what was in that movie? Because it looks like a kiddie coaster, but like, I don't know, it does like loops and stuff. I'm gonna, Intamin, I'm gonna say they're gonna do it. They'll get a double deal. They're making Fast and Furious, and they'll get a discount by making the Super Silly Funland coaster in real life. Oh, you actually, yep, Vince, Civilian Satellite.
That was the one I was
really
thinking of, because I think that actually will happen in the future.
I wasn't even thinking Nintendo, actually. Although, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Although I would love to actually build the Super Silly Funland coaster. Just to say a park did it.
Hey, I'll give, if for some reason, even if they add like a kiddie coaster to that area, although I don't, like, space-wise, it seems pretty difficult, I'll give you credit for this. So,
you heard it here first.
Okay, let's do the next spin. We're getting like the absolute like weirdest ones I put on here. Okay, now we're okay.
There we go.
Okay, we got a normal park. in terms of this exercise. Kings Island. Oh boy. I think I've went with this before, and I know they haven't worked with them in a while, but man, I just think it's such a good fit. I'm going to go with a mock multi-launch in the style of a Copperhead Strike. I think it would, for one, they are lacking like really any coasters with any form of ejector airtime. They would get a little bit of it. I think with a mock multi-launch, it'd probably have like some of the strongest airtime in the park. So, and they could use like a more modern launch coaster as well. I know they have Flight of Fear, which is indoors. They have Backlot Stunt Coaster, which is like a family coaster. But I think a mock multi-launch would be a great fit here. Grandson of Beast as well.
Grandson of Beast. Nice.
But yeah, mock multi-launch is what I'm going with. Alrighty, so let's do your spin here. Let's see what park you get. Oh, well, you're getting a oh my god. Six Flags
Great Escape. Hey, the opportunities are endless. They just got a brand new coaster, and they're already planning their next one. So, all right. Here's what I think. They have their Vekoma Boomerang. I think that's gotta go. Especially at a family park like Great Escape. They can do better than a boomerang. Let me look at the map, because I don't know how much space is actually behind the boomerang, as I've never been to Lake George or Great Escape before. Oh, well, actually, I'll say this. If you have enough space behind the boomerang, which I'm looking right now. Okay, I'll say it. What the heck? You add a Big Bear Mountain style family coaster to Great Escape. It might contradict a bit with the Aero Mine Train. Or actually, you know what? Get rid of the Aero Mine Train. I'm sorry to anyone who likes Canyon Blaster, but a Big Bear Mountain style ride over there, and then there's a lot of space, for, at least it looks like that, behind Canyon Blaster that they can work with. So you could put a really big like Vekoma multi-launch in that spot.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I had North Star Coasters was a previous guest I had, and we did a segment where we alternated, but we did like predicting or like giving what we think what we would give each Six Flags park in the merge chain, because it was after the announcement, a coaster, and I did actually have Great Escape with a Vekoma family launch. So funny how that works.
They added Bobcat now, which you could argue is maybe like Family Thrill. So it's a similar, I guess, genre of attraction, but I feel like for Great Escape it could fit. They just need like a solid multi-launch.
Yeah, so I had it kind of as like one of the smaller versions we've seen in like Europe, like a Fruvic, just because I mean Big Bear Mountain was insanely expensive. So although I know a lot of that is theming, onboard audio apparently adds a lot to a coaster's budget, so that's part of it as well. But yeah, no, I think that's a good pick. Alrighty, we'll spin the wheel again, see what park we get now. And we're gonna get... Am I gonna get my home park here? Oh, no, not quite. Oh, just barely. Great America. Okay. Ooh, wow, this is actually interesting. Because there's one idea maybe even a few months ago, I definitely would have went with this. I'm not so sure now, but it's like such an obvious thing that I think I just might have to go with it.
I'm looking at their map.
So, Um, for this exercise, even I think Demon's safe, but say I had control, we're getting rid of Demon, and using that land, um, and we're gonna be putting in an RMC Raptor, kind of like Wonder Woman, Flight of Courage, or Jersey Devil style, is what we're gonna do. A lot of people have kind of pegged this as something they could do, and I think it'd be a good fit. So RMC Raptor is the choice here.
Yeah, I'm thinking I mean, this might be similar to Goliath as well, but if you have Goliath, the RMC Raptor, and then people always argue RMC American Eagle.
That would be quite the lineup.
Like the RMC park right there.
Yep. So
I think that could fit well. Do you think it would be the like normal cloned layout or like Wonder Woman, Jersey Devil?
I think it'd be like probably the Flight of Courage layout. I think would be the guess. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to a custom, but I think realistically that's probably what we would look at. So there we go. Alrighty, now we're gonna spin the wheel again, see what it has in store. And oh my gosh.
Okay.
You got Silverwood.
I don't think this is too hard. I'm gonna say a wild moose.
All right. You know what? That's a good shout. All right.
You could put that anywhere in Silverwood, and that would be the testing ground for their wild moose, right by the RMC factory. They also just added stunt pilots, so it's kind of going between that thrill and a family coaster. And then we'll see. You can see how the response is right there at Silverwood.
Yep, you're exactly right. And they are actually secretly kind of missing. I didn't realize this. Their family coaster lineup is actually really poor right now. Because you have like the big five, and then you have a Zamperla powered coaster, which I mean that's like really a kiddie coaster, I feel like, and an SBF Visa spinner. So this would serve them actually extremely well. So that's actually a great pick. So makes a ton of sense. So that's actually probably maybe my favorite fit, honestly. Alrighty, we'll spin the wheel, see what happens. And I think it's SeaWorld Orlando.
SeaWorld.
Okay. I was worried there. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do for the Nick universes.
Right after Penguin Trek. All right. Their fourth year of adding roller coasters back to back. What are you adding?
Oh, man. This one. Okay. I think I got to step back for this one. Kind of really look at the lineup. I also have to think about the surrounding area, too.
Yeah, it's honestly a harder choice than you'd expect.
There is an option. I'm not enthused about it, but I think it's what makes sense here. I'm gonna go with another B&M. I'm gonna go with a B&M wing coaster for them. There isn't any in the general area, so like and they love the work with B&M, so we're gonna give them a B&M wing.
Here's what would be so funny about that. I think if they added one more B&M, they break the record that Great Adventure holds for the most B&Ms in one park.
Wow. Or would they break it or tie it? I think they would tie it because they have
Kraken, Pipeline, Mako, Penguin Trek, and then.
Oh yeah, it would be the 6th. Okay, yeah. So then they would break it. I'm pretty sure.
Jeez.
They love B&M.
B&M.
I would not put it past them. Also, I'll just mention, if any of these somehow become true, that just I mean, I guess the hope is that at least one of these hits. But that'd be funny. But yeah, spin the wheel one last time. This will be our last park.
Please make it a good one.
Oh
Oh
no.
no.
Oh
Keep it.
no.
No. Come on.
Michigan's Adventure.
We saved the best for last.
That's a great final park. All right, what do you got for them?
All right. I gotta look at their land, but I know their last coaster was a kiddie coaster. So they need
that was
another
relocated within their own park.
thrill.
So their actual last new coaster,
The relocated.
which was still a relocated coaster, but at least it was from outside of their park, was Thunderhawk.
All right. So there's a lot of land behind Shivering Timbers that I'm assuming the park owns that could be used for anything. So I am gonna actually say a B&M hype. Well, that could be similar to Shivering Timbers potentially. Well, actually, I think there were
Relocating
rumors...
Rougarou to Michigan's Adventure is not a bad idea. Yeah, Coaster Evan just said it.
Oh my god.
Dang, but you were thinking the same thing?
Well, I was going to say, I think there were rumors or actual plans long ago. Weren't they going to add a Chance Hyper Morgan, or a Morgan Hyper to Michigan's Adventure?
I don't know if that was an actual rumor, but maybe.
You know what? I'm actually going to say an Intamin Hyper.
Okay.
So, still getting that Hyper there. It's a little more dynamic than the just constant airtime hills that Shivering Timbers has. A little more dynamic, and you could fill that plot there. And yeah, they give them another marquee coaster. Poor Michigan's Adventure.
I'm not gonna lie, I probably would have been thinking along the relocation route.
That's also fair. I'm going more endless money, boundless dreams. If thinking realistically, honestly, Rougarou is not a bad guess.
My worry is it might be too old, but
actually, this might make people angry, but what if you relocate some of the CGA coasters there?
I mean, hey, if you could relocate Railblazer, I think that would be an excellent park to put it at. I think that would be wonderful to see that. And I don't even think that's like a pity thing. I think like people who live near Michigan's Adventure, they would be over the moon to get Railblazer, as they should be. It's a phenomenal ride.
It's a fantastic coaster.
And I mean, that 1-2 punch, all of a sudden, like the rest of their coaster lineup, you know, maybe forget about it, but hey, at least they would have an amazing top two. So
they should relocate Railblazer to Six Flags America instead. I think that would be too close to Great Adventure.
Fair.
Although that's not a bad idea. That would definitely improve their lineup.
Because it's because it's charged on PC's home park. Fair enough.
I would honestly rather them RMC Roar. That's a prime candidate for
They keep retracking it though. they retrack it every off season, so it's like nope.
Or give it Titan Track. I got to experience Titan Track for the first time on Boulder Dash, and it's really smooth when you ride it, but it doesn't even feel like a wooden coaster anymore. It's that smooth.
It's
really strange.
I experienced it on Kentucky Rumbler. Now on certain coasters, if you put too much of it on a wooden coaster, I would have a little bit of issue. But if you just want to put it over a problematic section, I think that's fine. Especially like if it's earlier in the layout, I think it's actually going to be good because it allows the coaster to actually have better pacing because it seems to run faster on the Titan Track. Like Kentucky Rumbler was, I think, actually having some downtime after it opened with the Titan Track because it was coming into the station quicker than it had previously. to which it or to what the system was used to. Well, that and it also got a lot of wooden retrack as well. But um, I mean, RMC Roar would be ideal. I do agree. I mean, it should happen, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like that's
It
happening
would elevate
anytime
that park for
soon.
sure. I'm curious if anyone would show up for it though, which is really sad because it's in a great, like, it's heavily populated area in Washington D.C. and Baltimore, but dang, I wish it would happen.
Yeah, for sure. But that'll wrap it up for that segment. I don't know if I'd like the name Roller Coaster Roulette the best for this thing. Maybe it's a good name, but if those of you in chat enjoyed the segment, let me know. Might be something I bring back, just experimenting with a few different things. With that being said, we'll go on to our final Q&A. I'll admit, streams actually lasted a little over what I was expecting getting to this point, but think we'll do kind of a short Q&A here. Send your questions in over what, like say next 5-10 minutes. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right. So we'll do that, and then
I know I mentioned this at the top of the stream if any of you were there, but feel free to ask about anything and
for
I'll
sure,
answer it.
Roller Coaster Rodeo. I think it's too similar. I'd probably keep Roulette.
That would mix people up with the Ace, or well, not Ace event, but like the park
Oh,
event at
the
Fiesta,
Fiesta,
Texas.
Texas. Oh yeah, Jeff Receiver's gonna come after me. um, I'm sure there's something out there called Roller Coaster Roulette. I'm sure. I don't know necessarily a event, but I'm sure someone's used it for something. Um, Thoughts on Phantom's Revenge? I'll defer this to you since you said earlier it used to be your number one.
It was my number one for a little bit. Fantastic coaster. It's been a while since I've ridden it, but what I remember is the airtime is insane. I love the second drop going down into the ravine. It feels so fast. Um, and I think part of that also has to do, at least with the airtime, the restraints are very weird on Phantom's Revenge. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it before, but it sort of comes down from the side and it's really strange, but it provides some really great airtime on it. So overall, really great coaster. I need to get back on it as soon as I get to Kennywood again. I will.
Yeah, another coaster that I really want to check out. This one in particular because I've ridden the other supposed Morgan Magnum Opus and Superman El Ultimo Scape, so very different rides, but being able to be like, okay, which one do I like better? Would be pretty fun. The terrain usage on Phantom's Revenge and its overall layout looks fantastic, and the airtime strength looks really good. So, some really amazing attributes there. Vince congratulates you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that as well, but congrats to you on graduating.
Thank you.
And I know you mentioned before the stream a year doing, I think you said around a year in grad school. So
Yeah, so
best of luck with that.
in case you guys don't know, I in college I'm a mechanical engineering major, and I finished 4 years. I got the bachelor's degree, which I'm very happy about. And my school offers one additional year to get master's degree, so I'm going to be doing that in Delaware for one more year, and then I'll be off into the real world where I gotta actually work.
Yep, that do
But
be
thank
the
you very
reality of
much,
things.
Vince, and welcome back home from your trip. I was following along.
Yeah, all the way out in Japan for a good while. Like it felt like around like 2 weeks or something. Was cool to see the updates on Instagram and your experiences over there. So, gotta get a shout out there too. You're
Oh yeah. This is Michael, Blue Diamond Coasters. He's in a lot of my videos, vlogs, things like that. Uh, I'll say this: I do have other brief histories uh, thought out, potential ideas. For those of you who don't know, Brief History is a series I do on my channel. I have three of them currently. I released my newest one in around springtime, Brief History of the Golden Kingdom, after a real long hiatus. It's kind of my take on like documentary or history videos. Um, so all I'll say is I have an idea for the next one. I don't know when I'm gonna start it. Probably not. Probably next year at the earliest.
That's fair. But I mean, I for anyone that hasn't checked out the brief history of Kingdom, I was able to check it out before the stream. Really good documentary type video. Would definitely recommend. Definitely a lot of interesting history of the area. I mean, of course, having heard about King Ka, even though I wasn't an enthusiast around that time, and having heard about some of the animal stuff, that was some of the stuff I was aware of. All the changes that happened with the kiddie areas as well, and the kiddie rides, and how quickly those kind of went away was really interesting. How quickly things changed after opening was kind of surprising. So that was really interesting to hear about because I was not aware of that history. So yeah, really good. Let's see. The airtime is insane. Feels like the rolling hill on El Toro in relation to Phantom's Revenge.
Certainly does.
Buy or sell. like Zamperla, which Zamperla's got to get through their stuff right now, but hopefully that's able to work out. Jinma rides will make a splash in the Western Coaster world. They're trying. They're trying with Noble Ride Switzerland, which is just basically their like European subsidiary. They were supposed to build coasters for Oasis at Lakeport, which did not end up working out for whatever reason. But they are actually, I think, building the Ferris wheel over there, so at least they're getting something. Like I think eventually someone built like a Western country will build a Jinma coaster, so I'll buy it from that front. Do I think they're gonna become like really popular? Probably not, but
They're at IAPA each year, I think.
oh yeah, no, they are. Can
So who
confirm.
knows? We may get Jinma here, although I think they're just not as well known in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hey, they're building a Ferris wheel in the U.S., so that's something.
We might
So.
see more Jinma Ferris wheels popping up in the U.S.
Yeah, I can't, I mean, actually, new Ferris wheels being built outside of like the super massive ones. You don't really hear about that super often anymore.
What was the one built at Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk?
Oh, yeah, okay, that was the Dream Wheel. That one was because they used to have a Ferris wheel. It was a Chance Rides Ferris wheel. They used to have a Ferris wheel that they removed for, I forget what they replaced it with, but it had been there a while and was iconic, so they brought in a new Ferris wheel to take its spot. I think it had just opened a day before we went on our most recent trip. I did not personally get to experience it, but we did see it cycling and having riders, so that was neat. Let's see. Thoughts on Mr. Six coming back? Kind of went over that in the news, but if you want to recap anything, Sean.
Yeah, really happy about it. I feel like I've been waiting my whole life for this news, honestly. But yeah, I'm really eager to see what they do around Fright Fest time. If there's gonna be more Mr. Six ads, how he's used during the event, whether that be a scare actor or part of the show, or just maybe he's the master of ceremonies, like the Halloween Horror Nights icons. We'll see how he's used, and I hope he is around for more than just Fright Fest because he seems like a really good character for them to keep using.
Yeah, so I'm mostly just curious, like how, as you mentioned, how is he going to be used for Fright Fest, and is there anything beyond that, or not? I'm kind of leaning towards no, but we'll see. In terms if they use him uh, in other advertising or anything of that sort. Um, let's see. What else? Ooh, this is a good question, at least I think. If you could have any industry professional on the Coaster Life podcast, who would you want?
That's a great question. So I think with the Coastal Life podcast, it really is focused on like how someone grew up liking roller coasters and eventually grew that interest into becoming a roller coaster enthusiast. So I think if I were to have any sort of industry professional on the show, it would have to be someone who is an enthusiast, which I feel like they'd be the ones who would be willing to do that sort of podcast anyway. But dream pick, wow. I'm gonna there's a few names, so I'm just gonna say them right now. Jeffrey Sieber, obviously. I feel like that's a simple choice in my mind. I'd love to have him on the show, and he would have, I think, a lot of cool stories, being an enthusiast himself. Um, Correct me if I get the name wrong, but I think Don Helbig, who's
Yep.
at Kings Island, he seems like he would be a great fit, and I think he has some really great stories. Um, oh wow, I think some. I think I'd be really interested in like some of the people who have worked at parks. Sorry, I just saw Tony Baxter. That would be and Bob Gurr. That would be insane.
That would be something.
Yeah, so I think anyone who is sort of an enthusiast but still works in the industry, someone like that, I feel like would be a great fit. That's a great question, though.
Yeah, that would be. That would be very interesting episode in terms of doing that sort of format. But it's also someone who part of it would be like also how they got in the industry and how that went. So that actually be really um, definitely interesting. What was the other B&M hyper? I think this is for me that I rode besides Diamondback, Goliath, and Mako. That would be Shambhala, Port Aventura.
Oh
Which,
wow.
if you want to rank them, it would be my least favorite would be Diamondback. Which I mean, of those, which is kind of unpopular, but of those four, I think the three ahead of it, most people would kind of understand. I have not ridden like what are considered, I guess, the lower tier B&M hypers. Um, and then it would go Shambhala after that, and then Mako, and then Goliath. I'm also lower on Shambhala than I think other people are. I actually have Furious Baco as my number one coaster in that park, which is
Ooh,
pretty spicy.
interesting.
uh, Another ride with an incredible launch. I think it blows Red Force out of the water, honestly. But uh, yeah, so that would be the fourth one. Um, and then I think this will be the last question. Oh wow, if you could pick one coaster designer from the past to bring back, design some new coasters, I guess. Who would you bring back? I have to like go through the
Okay. I'm gonna say Anton Schwarzkopf, so we could send him to Indiana Beach and properly like deal with All American Triple Loop.
You know what? That actually that's a
He can
fair
figure out the problem, whatever it
that's
is.
that's a fair point.
And he also
Um
just celebrated, I think, his 100th birthday recently. So I don't know. I don't know if he'd come back at 100 years old. I hope not. But in his youth or in his prime, bring him back, and he'll be able to help out with all of your coaster designs, make them intense. Maybe a few more circular loops are added again to coasters.
there's a lot of legendary names out there. Someone brings up Harry Traver. Ron Toomer would also be another legendary one. Um, I need to clarify this. I'm gonna kind of go with a kind of weird pick. Um, but so the problem is, like I said, kind of obscure, but I'm gonna go with Frederick Church. He was the one who designed Giant Dipper at Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk. Also designed the airplane closer at Rye Playland. Uh, I'm looking through just to see what else he has because I know he did Giant Dipper, but he also did Bob's at Riverview Park. So he made some pretty insane wooden coasters. But he's also made some that have still stood the test of time and are alive now. So I think he would be able to give us some wooden coasters like we wouldn't normally see nowadays, but things that would actually be able to last and survive. So he would be someone I'd want to bring back just because it'd be he could give us some very interesting wooden coasters now. So that'd be my pick. Like I said, kind of a probably not your normal pick, but I love me some Santa Cruz Giant Dippers. So, and some of his other coasters have pretty high reputations. So, yeah. I don't have any plan. I do not have a 200th coaster in mind yet. Thanks for asking. I am currently at 185. I have no idea what my 200th is. But hopefully in the near future that'll get figured out. But I think that's pretty much going to wrap up the stream. Sean, it's been a pleasure having you on. And if you have any last things you would like to say, you can go right on ahead.
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me on the Coaster Time show that you do. I've been watching it for a while now, and uh, I know we've been talking about this for a while now. So it's great that it finally happened, and we were able to get through it. I had a ton of fun uh, doing all the things, going over the news, playing all sorts of games, and just talking about the industry in general. Uh, and thank you all for tuning in, everyone watching here live with us, everyone who is watching this later. I hope you're able to get a sense of how I am as a roller coaster enthusiast. And if you're interested in checking out any other things that I do, whether that be videos or posts, you could follow me on East Coaster Fan, either YouTube, Instagram. And if you want a more, I guess, intellectual esque type of show, you can listen to the Coaster Life podcast that I do.
For sure. And I definitely vouch for Coaster Life podcast. I think it's really good. I also have East Coaster Fans links in the description. So if you want to check out his YouTube channel and any of his socials, make sure to check that out. As for any last sort of updates, there will be another Coaster Time episode within the next few weeks here. So look forward to that. Won't quite announce who the guest will be for that, but you can look forward to that. And with announcement season coming in, hopefully we're going to also be doing some live reaction streams to hopefully some announcements in the near future here. That would be something that may be coming in the next month or so. So with that being said, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time here on Coaster Hour. See you all.
See you guys.
Alrighty. I think that